Hey family, welcome back to my video. Today we will see, what if Harry Potter was Gryffindor and Master of Death? Before we start, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the original author of this story. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Now enjoy the video. In the end, it was not a difficult decision. After a little over 2 centuries of living, there was nothing much new to explore. Even though I came to accept the title of the Master of Death and everything else that comes with it, it still is a curse. I saw most of my friends get married, have families, and passing away. I was never able to have a long-term relationship because of my forever young appearance. Decades later I invented a way to mimic natural aging, but by then I had given up relationships. Magic was dying. There were few and fewer magical births every year. Many magical creatures became extinct. There are no unicorns now. No new house elf was born in the past 50 years. Magical levels of witches and wizards have become so low that no one can cast a Patronus now. So when death offered me a new adventure in a new world, I didn't have any reason not to accept. Death told me that I cannot take anything with me except for the Hallows, which is part of me now. Literally. All 3 items were absorbed into my body. I can become invisible just by thinking of it and need no wand to cast spells. As for the resurrection stone, I never tried to use that again. With my permission and without any ceremony, death took me from my old world and dropped me somewhere. It was much worse than a portkey. Once I got my senses back, I realized that I am in the middle of nowhere. I extended my senses outwards but found no human nearby. So I walked towards a hill wanting to get a better view of the lands. A couple of hours later I heard human voices. I had no idea what they were talking about as I didn't know their language. There were a group of men with horses camping and sharing a meal. I activated my invisibility cloak and got closer to them. It was clear that one of these men was the leader regardless of his young age. Well, he is a child. From what I could see, I realized the culture is primitive compared to my old world, especially if they use swords as a weapon. I got closer to the leader and used legilimency to get a better understanding of the language and the lands of this world. I am a Grand Master of Mind Arts. I copied his memory to mine and absorbed the knowledge. That was a neat trick taught to me by a Tibetan monk as a thank you for saving his life. It proved my initial guess that the world is primitive. They are similar to the Middle Age of my old world in many ways, but in some ways, it is more primitive than that. To my shock, they have been in the Middle Ages for thousands of years. I am in a continent called Westeros and a region called Vale, one of the 7 regions. These were once separate kingdoms and now ruled under one king. The young man is the heir to the biggest region called North. His name is Brandon and he is traveling from Erie, where his brother is fostered, to Winterfell, his castle. Young Brandon is 15 years old. A loud voice snapped me out of meditation. I saw a band of thieves attacking the Northerners. It was soon evident that these thieves outnumbered them and will be defeated regardless of their superior skills. Even after 200 years I still couldn't get over my saving people thing. So I conjured a sword and ran to the battle. The thieves were startled by my sudden appearance, which gave me and Northerners a brief advantage to push for an attack. We fought for like an hour, which was in reality about 10 minutes. Everyone in the northern group fell protecting the young heir, but not without killing or disabling many of the thieves. In the end, it was Brandon, I, and 3 thieves left standing. I formed a temporary mental connection between Brandon and myself and fought them like a well-oiled machine. We managed to kill every thief, but Brandon was injured seriously and soon lost consciousness. I couldn't heal the cuts as I will not be able to explain them. I however stopped the bleedings and wrapped them with clothes torn from the fallen. Leaving the wounded there temporarily, I explored the surrounding area to find some herbs for medicine. Thankfully I could find some plants that could be used and made a simple salve for his wounds. More than half of Brandon's companions were dead. The remaining was injured. They will need medical treatment soon or they will die. They cannot travel anywhere in their condition nor wait till help arrives. I had no choice but to use magic. I carefully treated the most of dire injuries with magic and altered their memories carefully so that they will think they were not injured seriously. Thankfully Brandon woke up right after I've done healing the rest. Easy there. You took a hit to the head. Don't move, I told Brandon, who tried to get up. Who are you? He asked. My name is Harold. What's your name? I pretended like I do not know him. I am Brandon. What happened? He asked. Well, I arrived to see your group being attacked by these thieves, so I jumped in to help. Why? Where did you come from? Where I come from is a long story. As for why, how could I not help? What's important now is to get help. I am a good healer, but I don't have any medicine with me. I treated you all as best as I can, but we need proper care before long. There should be a village about a couple of hours' ride. One of the soldiers told me, who was listening to me. Well, it will be difficult, but I guess it is possible to reach it before nightfall. I gathered from their talks that we are in the foothill of the Mountains of the Moon and that the attackers were not thieves but mountain clans. The closest village is called Palisade, and further south is the Crossroad Inn. They decided to travel to the village for now and send a messenger to the Crossroad Inn to get carriages. The plan is to rest at the inn and get treatments. Brandon questioned me about myself. Thankfully, I had enough time to cook up a story. My name is Harold Gryffindor, Lord Stark. My family is originally from the north. Thousands of years ago, my ancestor left with his Lord Father's permission to explore the world. He traveled to Essos and never came back. My family has been explorers and merchants last thousands of years. The family who stayed here in the north perished a long time back. My father's dream was to come back to our roots and settle there. But he passed away before he can. We grew in numbers over the last thousands of years, but many perished because of the adventurous life we live. I am the head of the Gryffindor clan that includes many cadet branches. So I decided to come to our ancestral lands and test the waters. I was on my way to my family's castle. I wanted to see it even if it is in ruins. What's your family castle? Brandon asked. Moat Cailin, I answered. That gave him a pause. Your ancestors were the lords of Moat Cailin? He asked once he got out of shock. Yes, my lord. I added a little compulsion for him to trust me. My ancestors were marsh kings. My ancestor left a couple of years before it was conquered by your ancestor, the Laughing Wolf. I was very thankful for the knowledge I gained from Brandon so that I could weave the story. I realized Moat Cailin is the most strategically placed castle in the north. It guards the causeway to the north. No army can march without conquering the castle. I pretended to be from the family held the castle thousands of years ago. I hope I will be able to request the castle and the lands from Brandon's father. I was not delusional to think that just by requesting I am going to get it. But with my magic, I will be able to get the Warden of North pretty much anything he demands. We spent several days at the Crossroad Inn recovering. Brandon happily paid for my expenses. I told him that I was robbed of my money and horse before I met them. Once the healer gave the okay to travel, we departed to Winterfell, this time with a large force for protection that Brandon hired. We reached Winterfell with no more obstacles on our way. Lord Rickard, father of Brandon, welcomed me warmly once Brandon explained that I saved his life. Winterfell is from a distance a beautiful and imposing castle, but once you see it closer, you can see it has passed its glory days. Some parts of the castle are in ruin. Courtyards are not paved and muddy. The place needs some serious renovations. I was hoping to rebuild my family back in the north where we originated, my lord, I told Lord Rickard. We were discussing my origins in the north and he was curious as to why I am here now. Lord Rickard invited me to sit with them at the dinner. As I understood, it is not something anyone will have the chance to. It is either family or nobles who get to sit at the main table. Moat Cailin is in ruins. I want to rebuild it with your permission, my lord. I am aware that it is not mine and I lay no claim to it or the lands. But I was hoping that you will grant me the castle and lands that belong to it. In return, I can give you almost anything you want. Over last 1,000 years, we have collected treasures both monetary and otherwise. That's a very daring thing to say, to offer to get me anything I want. Lord Rickard said after a moment's silence. I said almost anything, my lord. I can't bring the dead back to life or give you a dragon. But I might be able to bring back someone at the brink of death or get you dragon bones. I took the chance to peek into Lord Rickard's head and see what he might wish. Like many men, money is one of the things he desired. He is concerned about his two young sons. They will be left with almost nothing as the lordship will be given to his eldest son. North is vast, but it seems to be the poorest of all kingdoms excluding Iron Islands. May I offer something, my lord? I asked as Lord Rickard is still silent. He nodded.
You have two younger sons. Their future is not as clear as Lord Brandon's. You can give them lands as it is not rare in the north.
When the time comes for them to rule a keep of their own, I will give them 1,000,000 dragons each to build their keep and to start their town. Also, I will give 1,000,000 dragons now to you.
Now that shocked them. North is a harsh place. As honorable as they might be, the richest they are not. That much money is something they can't even dream of.
2,000,000 dragons now. Lord Rickard counter-offered. Even in ruins the castle you ask is very important to the north and we have no proof of your ancestry. 2,000,000 dragons now if you can give me lands east of the castle until it meets the sea as well permission to build a port at the tip of Fever River. I gave my offer. If you are expecting that much of land it will have to be at least 5,000,000, said Lord Rickard. No lord in North owned that much land. Agreed if I can pay half of it up front and the rest within next 10 years, 250,000 dragons each year. Agreed. Lord Rickard agreed finally. If you recognize any character, I do not own them. Chapter 2 and if you recognize anything in this story, I do not own them. Year of 273 AC. One thing I learned in my long life is that money trumps everything. Now I hope I will be able to gather that much of money. Lord Rickard and I discussed about the deal in detail and signed an agreement. I told them that it will take at least a year, probably 2 for me to arrange everything and bid them goodbye to travel to Essos to try my luck. Lord Rickard had me escorted to White Harbor from where I found a ship that travels to Bravos. It is the place to go if you want a ship built fast, I've heard. The ships of the age are really primitive. They remind me of ships of 12 to 13 centuries of my old world. At one point ships were my hobby and I've learned all I can about ships both ancient and modern. I can easily design a far superior fully rigged ship. Since I have no money, I came to a deal with the Iron Bank of
Bravos. I will sell them the designs of my new type of ship. I will teach them how to build it, supervise the build of first ship. For this they will give me the first ship they build for free and 2 more ships each for next 2 years. They will also give me additional 100,000 dragons. The bank identified that this is going to be far more profitable venture for them than me in the long run. I have told them that my ship can travel twice faster than any ship they have. If my ship cannot achieve the target, the deal is off. In reality, the ship should be able to travel 3 to 4 times faster than their ships.
Bravos is a wonderful place which reminded me of Venice with its hundreds islands and canals. It is also rich in culture. I copied knowledge of many languages and skills. I used my magic to steal
from the crime lords of the city. I didn't feel bad as they don't deserve any of it.
I've learned that some people of this world are magical. They are not magical enough to wield a wand. They are essentially squibs. I was elated to find it. That means I don't have to be alone. I can find more magicals for my staff. I needed a foolproof method to ensure their loyalty. Magical auths are out as they can't use a wand. The only other way is a magical contract. The advantage is that even muggles can sign a magical contract as they have a little magic in themselves. As much as I loathe it, I had to create a blood quill to sign the contract. I created an ironclad contract for any of my staff to sign. Over the 6 months I stayed in Bravos, I found over 200 men, women and children who signed the contract. About 50 of them were sailors. I was in need of them to travel in my ship. The first ship was built in 6 months after my arrival. It took this much time as it is the first attempt. I estimate that in the future it would take them maybe a month per ship using same number of workers. The ship is 4 masts fully rigged 150 feet long ship. I was very proud of the finished ship. It proved that it can travel more than twice faster than any ship. Once I add my own magical alterations, it will be amazingly even faster than this. I sailed in my new ship to Far East. It was named Hedwig in the memory of my familiar who died saving me. My destination was Karth, which was said to be the richest city in the known world. I took almost all my sailors with me. I left 5 to search for more magical sailors, as I will have 4 more ships within next 2 years. As they can't sense magicals, I gave a charmed bracelet that will warm up if a magical person is near. Although sailors are a priority, I told them to look for others who will be useful, such as different craftsmen, shipbuilders, masons, and blacksmiths, and so on. On our way to Karth, we stopped over at all the ports. This is because once I visit a place, I can always apparate there again. At each city I gained more knowledge from people and stole from rich, greedy merchants and crime lords. One of the places I wanted to visit was the old Valyria. No one even dared to sail near that place. The reason is it is full of toxic gases. No one can come back alive. Thankfully I have the bubblehead charm. It took me a lot to convince my sailors to sail to the smoking sea. Once we are near, I cast a bubblehead charm and apparated to mainland. The air is toxic enough not even the plants grow. Once there, I used my magical senses to get an idea of the land. The ruins go many miles north and south of the smoking sea. I tried to sense what buried in my immediate vicinity. I carefully excavated the site and recovered Valyrian steel weapons. As my luck would have it, I found an armory full of weapons. I kept digging and found Valyrian steel worth millions of dragons. That is if you can actually put a price on these priceless weapons. With the initial success, I spent close to a month digging and found many treasures. We sailed to a small island north of Valyrian Peninsula and set temporary camp there while I was digging. I used the time to add more magical protections and alterations to the ship. One of the first things I did was to ward the ship. I have made the ship a lot stronger. Strong enough that even a cannon blast, if existed, will not be able to put a dent in the ship. I also added NTENT-based ward that no one who want to harm the ship or steal the ship or its cargo can board it. Finally I added a notice me not ward that can be activate or deactivate as needed. I have also made the ship lighter to increase the speed and made the ship stable so that traveling in stormy sea will not be a problem. And finally I used space extension to the maximum. The ship can hold 10 times more than its cargo holds. After a month I stopped digging to continue to further east. Besides, I can always come back if I want to. Our next stop was Astapor. I wanted to hire some soldiers, and the best are unsullied. They are slaves, so I will have to buy them. But I have every intention to free them and offer employment. Once we reached the city, I met with the slave masters and convinced them to allow me to choose who I want. I selected magicals available. After inspecting about 1,000, I found just short of 200 magicals. That is 20% of the total. I guessed that magicals, even if it's passive, have a better chance of survival in their harsh trainings. Now with a good number of guards, we sailed to Karth. Karth deserved the title of Queen of Cities. Considering the level of development in this world, it is as impressive as it can be. And as expected, it brims with wealth. I had no shame in robbing the greedy, ruthless merchants of the city. Now that I have more than enough wealth, I sailed to Bravos. I sold my cargo in Bravos for a lot of profit. Very few ships travel from Bravos to Karth due to distance. This allowed me to offer Bravos' merchants goods from Far East. Year 275 AC. Once my business is done in Bravos, I sailed to White Harbor with my new army. Long gone were the signature unsullied looks. They still prefer leather armor and spears, but they now have better versions of them. I plan to teach them how to make the leather armor stronger than steel by using runes. The finished product will stop a steel sword but will be as flexible as normal leather. I needed them not to look like their former selves, as slaves will not be welcomes in Westeros regardless how much money I might throw. It was an impressive procession that reached Winterfell. 200 armed men are a threatening sign for any town, but it was expected as I am traveling with a lot of gold. While I was away I had time to think of little details such as a flag and a motto. I was torn between Phoenix and Griffin to use in the flag. At the end I decided to use the griffin as it is part of the family name I chose. I deigned a flag where a fierce golden griffin stand on its rear legs on a black background. The end product was more beautiful than I imagined. As for the motto, I used the same old Potter family motto Sola Nobilitas Virtus, virtue is the only nobility. My little army carried the banners of my new flag. Lords Rickard and Brandon welcomed me warmly. I apologize for the show of muscle, my lord, but I had to protect what I am bringing. I told Lord Rickard, apologizing of the small army. That is understandable, Harold. Or we should call you Lord Gryffindor now, I guess, he said jokingly. I have the promised amount of dragons with me, my lord, and additionally I have another 2 gifts for Lords Eddard and Benjen. I managed to acquire 2 swords, I said, offering him 2 Valyrian steel swords I found. Both Lord Rickard and Brandon were speechless. I later suggested a grand feast in a month or 2, inviting all the lords of North. I have to meet them, and their acceptance is as important as Starks's. Lord Rickard agreed and sent ravens to every important keep summoning them for the feast. Lord Rickard insisted that I don't pay for the feast as I suggested. With a feast planned and as the official lord of Moat Cailin, I sailed back to Braavos, leaving 3/4 of army at Moat Cailin. The shipyards of Braavos had built more than a few Hedwig-class ships. I received one of them as part of my promised 4 ships. The next one will be in another 6 months. The magicals I left in Braavos had scouted for many more magicals. Most of these were poor people and orphan children. They were glad to leave with promise of a better life. I arrived at Moat Cailin with 2 ships and little more than 800 people. The 150 of Unsullied, who I named Spartans, had cleared and cleaned most of Moat Cailin existing towers. It is still a dump though. The castle used to have 20 towers, I was told, but now only 3 remain standing. Barely. We settled the women and children at the cleaned towers and made temporary shelters for the rest. And, at the beginning of the story where Harry meets Brandon, Harry is 18 years old. Brandon is 15 and Ned is 10. Chapter 3 in. I don't own anything. It was almost time for the grand feast, so I let my people remain there for the moment and went to Winterfell with 15 of my Spartans. I carried with me gift for all the lords and ladies that will attend. Winterfell Castle has gone through a great transformation within last 2 months. With the new wealth of the Starks, they have repaired many parts of the castle. The courtyards were paved. The walls looked like someone cast a powerful Scourgify charm on them. The banners were bright and many. The great hall looked amazing. It had no gloomy look like before. The hall was bright and decorated with many banners and paintings that were not there before. Old furniture were gone and replaced by new. It was a grand feast like never before for the North, Eventhaw. Rickard refused my help. I still sent some things for the feast. That includes best wine from Dornay and Abor, as well as spices and herbs as far as away from Yeti. I have also sent many types of preserved meat and fish. In front of all the lords, Rickard proclaimed my lordship and grant me the castle of Moat Cailin. I in return swore fealty to the Starks of Winterfell. I gave each lord a Valyrian dagger, and for ladies I gifted the best fabric from Yeti. I had something for each and every son and daughter that came with their lord father. The meetings, feasts and hunting parties lasted for a couple of days. House Reed and House Manderley needed little more. Those 2 occupy the lands surrounding what I own. The lands given to me and officially considered their own, although it was never officially given to them. The land I occupy now never been used as settlements or farmlands by any of them. They have no grounds to complain, but they are disgruntled. I already have a huge gift to Lord Manderley. I put an order for a 50 feet long smaller version of the Hedwig-class ship at Braavos. I can pick it up in a month. I met Lord Manderley privately and offered him the ship, and he gladly accepted. His mood was joyful after that. House Reed is another matter altogether. They live isolated and piss-poor lives. They are considered savages by the Southerners. They are also fiercely loyal to the Starks. Lord Reed. I am glad I get the chance to meet you away from all the feasts and formality. I said to the Lord Reed when I got him alone for a moment the day after the feast. "What can I do for you, Lord Gryffindor?" he asked. Polite but kind of cold voice. "Harold, please. I am aware I was given lands that unofficially considered yours. I apologize." "There is nothing to apologize. Like you said, the lands were not ours in the first place." "That may be. But I would like to be on friendlier terms as we are neighbors. I know I am considered an outsider by you, but I hope in time you and all the other lords as well as small folks consider me a northern man. I could have gone anywhere. I could get land anywhere in south. But I came here because my ancestor was the son of a marsh king. That has to account for something. We Cranogmen have lived in these marshes for thousands of years without any interference. Suddenly there are strangers. We are concerned how much this is going to change," he said after a few moments. "We will not interfere with your lives, Lord Reed. We will not go anywhere south of Moat Cailin. I plan to build a harbor and a port on the Fever River. That's all our reach into the marsh. We won't go anywhere else. I hope a harbor and the port will be beneficial to you and your men. I was hoping we can build a salt town there together. I admit when you reveled that plan at the feast I was intrigued. I can see how that would benefit the whole north if it is built. There is one more thing. I know whatever lands you have are muddy and no crop can be grown. But I know something that can be grown there. It is a crop called rice that is grown in Yee. They make the land muddy by flooding to grow them. Here you and to a smaller scale I have what needed without trying." "I've never heard of this rice," Reed said, now very interested. "It's because no one west of Jade Gate really was interested before. Now I can't be 100% sure if it works out. We will have to test. But if it works, we will never have to worry about food when the winter comes." "How so?" "Rice is a type of grain that never gets spoiled. If you can store them in a dry place, you can keep it forever. When you want to eat, you have to boil it just right. You eat it with vegetable or meat." "That is very interesting, Harold. For both the port and your rice farming, you have my support. Let me know how we can help," he said finally. Overall, the feast was a huge success. I got to meet all the VIP in North and cultivated friendships. Once all the festivities done, I came back to my own castle. Lord Reed and I shared the journey until Moat Cailin. I decided not to do any reconstruction on the castle for the moment. It stood as it is for thousands of years and it can wait a little bit more. I did, however, fix the 3 towers with magic and cleaned it up. It is as good as it can get for the moment. My people were already at work. The area for the town is cleared. With my help we felled trees and the woodworkers started making furniture and other basic necessities. Blacksmiths, carpenters and many more have started and are hard at work. There is a couple of slave glass workers I stole from Mir who is setting up a glass workshop. I am going to teach them how to improve the glass work and how to make perfect clear glass sheets. My people, unlike many in Westeros, are going to have glass windows. Another important craft is making bricks. I have asked blacksmiths to make molds to make uniform and better bricks. I taught them how to salt glaze the bricks to look better. This way they will look beautiful even without plaster. A large kiln was built to burn the clay bricks. The good thing is that everyone is pitching, even the small kids. When they are not in school, I made it mandatory for all kids between 5 to 12 years of age to learn reading, writing and basic mathematics. I have found few men to teach them. Anyone older can attend night classes. One of the towers is used for the school for now. Planning the town was difficult. I had no experience in town planning, so I had to go with what I think is best. Moat Cailin Castle was built on the swamp, so the town was planned about a kilometer north of the castle. I plan to use the King's Road as the backbone of the road network. The town will grow along it. The town doesn't have a lot of space to grow towards the west side as it is again meeting the swamp. Hence the town has to grow towards east. My first task in town planning was to mark a road network. From the town a road will be built towards White Harbor. Once that is done, I marked space for public buildings such as a school, hospital, town center and so on. Then, I mapped a sewage system. My plan is to dig some big holes around the city where all sewage goes. The pits will be magic-keyed to make sewage disappear. The houses built are pretty much basic. They all are two-story houses with a basement. The basement walls are stone and the other walls are clay bricks. The roofing was also done by clay roof tiles. The ground floor has all the common areas and the upper floor has sleeping chambers. Each house has its own water sprout. It was easy to do. All you have to do is to dig a 3 by 3 by 3 feet pit and place a runestone scribed and powered with Aquamenti charm. I taught some young girls how to make them. Passive magicals can use and activate low power runes thankfully. Many didn't want a house in the town itself. These were the people who wanted to farm. Farmlands were marked about a kilometer east of the town center. I was hoping to grow some fruit, grain and vegetable. I hope that my farmers will grow to sell, not to self-consume. I plan to create additional consumer goods using agricultural products like whiskey, rum, and jam and so on. Many things I want to grow are from Far East. I just hope they will grow. Well here. The small ship I ordered for Lord Manderley was done and I sent it to Yi Ti to bring as much as paddy possible to grow rice. I asked my people to get different types of paddy. They were also instructed to bring seeds, cuts and plants of vegetable, grain and fruit they can find. In the meantime, Cranongmen and some of my people prepared paddy fields. I sent one of the Hedwig-class ship on a trade mission to Karth. Now we know what can be sold for high profit. I ordered my team to go all out. With the space expansion, it will be like sending 10 ships. I have ordered 5 more Hedwig-class ships as well as a smaller Hedwig-class ship for myself. The smaller ships will be named Kingfisher-class. The Kingfisher-class ship will have a crew of 15 sailors. It will be assigned 20 Spartans for protection. I plan to get 10 archers as well. Kingfisher will be my personal ship. It is not built for trade but can be used for it if needed. Hedwig class will be assigned 30 sailors, 20 merchants and 50 Spartans. That means I will need more sailors and Spartans. I am not planning to order more ships. I am hoping in a year or two, I will have enough people collected to have my own shipyard. Chapter 4 I don't own anything. As things are progressing nicely, I was ready for next step of my grand plan. I was aware that I can't do everything myself on my own. And there is no one I can absolutely trust to delegate some sensitive tasks. And even if I did, I didn't want to reveal the full capability of my magic. In my old world, in Japan, I have come across a secret one of the magical families has been keeping for centuries. I wasn't looking for it. I just wanted to learn Japanese by copying his knowledge, but I got more than I expected. The family has developed a method to create a clone of them. They are perfect copies of the one being cloned. It creates a copy who can act independent of the creator. But the primary control is kept with the one the clone made of. The clone can never harm or betray the creator. They can be made copies of any age. That means I can create a clone of me 10-year-old or 70 years old. I have of course tried and it worked perfectly. The clone was a perfect copy. The clone had all my memories, knowledge, skills. However, clones are not as powerful as me. They are not weak by any means, but it's nowhere near my power levels. They do not possess my immortality either, as I have found the hard way. And they age like normal people. The ritual needs more than few drops of my blood. I have been collecting blood over time little by little for this. Normally this will not really work well, as a clone would look exactly the same as the master copy. But thankfully I am a metamorphagus, which I found out when the soul leech was removed from me. I have been able to change my hair length since my early childhood. Once the Horcrux was gone, I could do much more. Andromeda Tonks helped me to control the ability. My godson Teddy was one as well. For his sake I invented a way to tie a metamorphagus form into jewelry so that he wouldn't change depend on his emotions. One full moon I performed the ritual and made 10 clones. First 2 will take forms of Chris and Liam Hemsworth. Chris will be the master at arms of Moat Kalin and Liam will be the captain of household guard. They are aged at 20 and 18 respectively. I will introduce them as my cousins and will be names Chris and Liam Gryffindor. Chris will be a leader of the infantry and cavalry. Liam Chris's second in command is the leader of my personal guard and the guards of the castle. Liam will be the acting master at arms for the moment, as I have Anther task for Chris. He will travel the Essos and sign sellswords for the army. He is as good as me in mind arts, so he can scan and find suitable candidates. He can also bind them in magical contracts. My idea is to have a permanent army of 1,500 men. It will consist of 1,000 infantry, 200 cavalry and 300 archers. They will be given a monthly salary with accommodation, food, armor and weapons. They will also work as the city guard and ship guards on a rotation basis. To cover costs, they will provide protection details for anyone who can pay. Another clone will take the form of Jeremy Renner, the Hawkeye. He will be introduced as another cousin with the name of the man he looks like. His task is to travel to Summer Islands and recruit 300 archers and map the islands. There is nothing much known about the Summer Islands, and the southern part of it is not in any map I could find. They are famous for the archers. My plan is to get 10 archers stationed at each ship. Like the infantry, they will work on ships on rotation. Next, 2 will wear the faces and bodies of Kellen Lutz and Taylor Lautner. They will be the commanders of the 2 Navy fleets once I have them. The other 5 will be distributed to Bravos, Pentos, Mir, Volantis and Cohor. They will respectively take the forms of Ian Somerhalder, Stefan Amail, Matt Bomer, Channing Tatum and Robert Pattinson. Their task is to establish a base in each city and act as the chief merchant for their city. They will also actively search for talented men and women to recruit. 5 years later, year of 280 AC, Moat Cailin is now the second biggest city in the north, only second to White Harbor. The city has about 20,000 residents. It now has better houses than the initial brick houses. Anyone in my employ is well paid. It allowed them to either improve the brick houses or purchase land and build a better house somewhere else. The city grew around the public square I planned. It has a city hall with reception hall downstairs and administrative offices upstairs. Another clone of mine resembles Grant Gustin was appointed as the city administrator. He was introduced as my youngest brother. He was given the same eyes as me and messy black hair. Another younger brother was introduced with the face of Lucas Till with messy black hair and green eyes. He was sent to travel all over the world to copy medical knowledge. He returned a year back and made the chief of healers. Lucas Gryffindor is now writing books on his immense knowledge of medicine and healing, as well as teaching the next generation of healers. The only female Gryffindor was made to resemble my mother with red hair and green eyes, who was named Lily. She was made the dean of our school, Oxford. Lily married a nephew of Lord Manderley and the couple is living in Oxford. When the student number increased, we had to build a new school. Taking the opportunity to move the school, I built a new set of building allowing future expansions easily. From age 7 to 12, education is free and mandatory. From then, it is a paid service. Many good and well-paid jobs in the city required 4 more years of study. 2 more settlements were built. One was at the beginning of the Fever River about 40 km west of Moat Cailin. It was a joint project with House Reed. We expanded the river to create a harbor and built a port there. Only trade cogs and smaller ships like Kingfisher class can use it. The new port was named Marshport and the settlement has about 1,000 permanent residents. A proper wide road was created from Marshport to Moat Cailin. The second new settlement is on the eastern shore south of White Harbor and about 200 kilometers east of Moat Cailin. I had to be careful with this as another harbor will be an insult to Lord Manderley. At the end, the settlement was a fishing village and the harbor was used only for fishing boats and as a harbor for my battleships. All trade vessels still use White Harbor. This settlement was named Plymouth. Both Plymouth and Marshport are the bases of Western and Eastern fleets. Both fleets have 5 ships each built specially for warfare. We have built our own shipyard 3 years ago. I have designed and the shipyard built the 2 types of warships. The first was the flagship of each fleet named Neptune and Poseidon after the Greek and Roman sea gods. The ships are 150 feet long. It has a permanent crew of 50 sailors, 50 Spartans and 20 archers. If needed, the ship can carry 3 times its crew for battle. The second 50-feet escort class was named Ares after the Greek war god. The ship has permanent crew of 15 sailors and 20 Spartans as well as 10 archers. The archers and Spartans works on rotation with the hope to give everyone experience in both sea and land. Same way, sailors work on both trade ships and warships. Western Fleet protects our trade ships that serve the ports from Marshport to Sunspear to Summer Islands. They're also our shield from Ironborns. After the first couple of encounters, they learned not to come near a ship bear the Moat Cailin flag. Eastern Fleet is stretched too thin for the moment due to pirates in the Stepstones and the Slavers in the Summer Sea. I am in the process of doubling the numbers. Both Flagship class and Ares class is armed with rune clusters to make the hull as strong as steel. It is warded so that no unauthorized party can enter. As for the offensive weapons, each ship has large crossbows that shoot steel-tipped arrows that can easily pierce the hull of any ship bar our own. Once it is stuck in the hull, the arrow will simply explode. The arrows are 4 feet long. However, the most devastating weapon is on the Flagship class. Its main deck holds the biggest of all crossbows that shoots 10 feet long missile. In theory, it should be able to pierce a castle wall. We never got a chance to test it. Chris managed to achieve his target of 1,500 army. We had to increase the number more as we needed more soldiers for ships. Our ship count is considerably low compared to others like the Royal Fleet or the Redwines. But with the Clever Space expanding, out 10 ships equal to 100. And with the defensive and offensive capacity of our ships, they can stand a fleet. Cronongmen and we experimented with rice farming for 2 years. It took us a while to figure out the correct methods. Our patience and hard work paid off as now we are farming rice successfully. I have used all muddy fields I have to grow rice. Both parties grow equal amount of rice for the moment. But unlike me, they have much more suitable lands. My contribution soon will be insignificant if they expand. I built storage facilities to store rice. While it can be stored indefinitely without spoilage, it needs the correct environment. House Reed and House Gryffindor became close over the years. A union bound by marriage as Liam married a daughter of House Reed. Rowena Rewanclaw. Apart from rice, I experiment with my farmers to grow many varieties of crops. Strawberry is one of the success stories. I have built a large greenhouse to use as a nursery. I am hoping to grow them commercially next year on 25 acres of land. Few exotic types of fruits are grown in other many greenhouses, but they cannot be grown commercially as trees like mango and rambutan will be destroyed by the winter. Using grafting, I managed to make them fruit-bearing just in 2 to 3 years. I didn't want to grow things that are common in 7 kingdoms. So I sent for crops can be found in Far East. Soybean is one of those. I also started to grow wheat, barley and maize. For vegetable, carrot, beetroot, potato, turnip and tomato is growing. I often traveled to watch acres of farmlands. I simply couldn't get enough of it. Livestock is another booming industry. It is not commercially done. But I have introduced goats, sheep, and domesticated bovine. For the first time ever, North is eating well. No northern lord considers me an outsider now. Moat Cailin was rebuilt to its former glory. It will be finished in just a couple of weeks. I intend to hold a grand feast in celebration. I sent messages to many lords, knights of Westeros as well as important people from Essos. The feast is to be held in 3 months and it will be as grand as it can be. Sending messages has been one of the most hated things in this world for me. I searched for years to find a bird magical enough to perform post-owl ritual. Owls of this world doesn't have even single drop of magic. Thankfully Chris found that a type of falcon has magic which he found in the forest of Quhor. We collected more than 20 and now the number is about 100. They can only locate a magical person. So it had to be at least a squib. Then I started collecting squibs from each major town, city and taught them how to read and write if they didn't know already. Once they are ready, they were sent back to their homes with a falcon. They have also signed a contract assuring that they will not open a letter not directed to them or deliver the letter to a wrong person. The post method uses 2 envelopes. If I want to send a letter to Lord Stark, I will add Y letter to an envelope addressed to Lord Stark and seal it. Then I will put that envelope to another envelope addressed to Postmaster of Wintertown. So the Falcon will deliver the letter to Postmaster it addressed to. He then will hand deliver the letter to Lord Stark. I was so proud of my success. Many people used the service often. It was not free though, but many didn't mind paying for a faster and reliable delivery. All invitations sent to North was accepted and sent confirmation of participation. Most of the Riverlands lords accepted. At least some from other kingdoms accepted as well. Overall we can expect over 100 noble houses. Although Moat Cailin was rebuilt, it was not to the same plans of the old castle. It is a design between a castle and a palace. Unlike 10,000 years ago when it was built first, there are many advantages to use. Glass for one allows creating large windows to allow light. Inner walls were made of bricks and plastered. That and the marble or wood floors added a brighter look to the inside. Outside the castle it looks almost the same except for the windows. New Great Hall of the castle can sit 1,000 for the feast. I was glad as looking at the guest list. These lords will come with their wives and children. I hope everything goes smoothly as possible. I was in my study and going through heaps of reports. I called a guard outside and told him to call Rowena Ravenclaw, one of my cloned cousins. You asked for me, Harry? Rowena has my eyes, a trait now called Gryffindor eyes by others. She is 16 years old, with golden hair and a petite form. She is a sight to behold. Yes. I was wondering if you have given any thought on the proposal I mentioned. I wanted an alliance with Lord Mallister. Their seat, town of Seaguard, is the only seaport Riverlands has. They are also very important if I want to undermine the power and influence of House of Frey at the Twins. I loathe the Frey family. House Reed has constant skirmishes with them. I was hoping Rowena agreed to a union between her and the brother of Lord Mallister. I will have to offer a really large dowry for the Lord Mallister to agree, as she is not even from the main Gryffindor line. I've met him once. He isn't bad looking and from what I could see not a bad person either. If you can manage to arrange it, I am not against it, he said. Thank you, Rowena. Sit down. I have some ideas. I want your opinion as you are the one getting to it. Very well. What do you have in mind? She asked. For Lord Mallister I can offer to build him 1 or 2 war galleys. I am sure that will be enough to convince him. As for you and young Enrique Mallister, I took out a detailed map of Riverlands. You see this small farm village? I asked, showing her a village. Located in the banks of the Green Fork River, it is located east of the Seaguard. Yeah? I was thinking of asking Lord Mallister to give that village and some more land to Enrique. We can give some gold or more ships for that. You and Enrique can build a keep there. With your knowledge and skill, you can make that poor village a nice small town in no time. That is great. But why do I have the feeling there is more? She asked with a smile. Because there is. If all goes according to the plan, once you are married you can build a bridge crossing the river. How Slytherin of you. This way Lord Mallister will have no way of benefiting from it. All profit goes to us. Yes. But you need to be patient. Wait for a couple of years. For the moment think and design a castle you want to build. Oh, I know what I want to build, she said with a smirk. You do? How much is this going to cost me? Remember Castello di Amorosa in California? Don't remind me? That place is something I want to forget. Well, anyway, I want that. It doesn't have to be completed all at once. It will be quite suspicious. And reveal how much you can actually spend. I will design it in a way it can be expanded. Fine. Enrique will be here for the feast. You know what to do. If you need anything let me know. Rowena's point of view, it was weird to be a clone to say the least. One moment I was Harold Gryffindor of Moat Cailin and next I am a copy of his. Since I was him, I knew what he wants the clone me to do. I changed myself to a girl of 13, a golden-haired, green-eyed beauty. It's not strange to take a form of a girl. Metamorphagus are bisexual by nature. They enjoy both the gender they were born as and the opposite sex. Whenever Harry wanted to have sex with a straight guy he is attracted to, he changed into a girl. I should feel jealous that Harry has all the power, money and prestige. But I don't. For all he has, immortality is a curse. He will never allow himself to fall in love. He will never have his own son or daughter. We all clones feel bad for him. Although we are technically bisexual, we all prefer men over women. When Harry asked me to consider Enrique Mallister couple of months back, I made a trip to Seaguard with my cousin Lucas Gryffindor and had the chance to meet him. While he is nowhere near handsome as my male clones, he isn't bad looking either. He is definitely handsome enough. Little into slim side than muscle, but that is easily helped with little magic and potion plus a meal plan. I am waiting at the main door of the castle to welcome Jason and Enrique Mallister to Moat Cailin. Lord Mallister, welcome to Moat Cailin. I am Rowena Ravenclaw, cousin of Lord Gryffindor. My Lord Gryffindor sends his apologies that he couldn't greet you himself as he is in Plymouth at the moment, I said after a courtesy. Thank you, my lady. I think you already know my brother Enrique. Lord Enrique. It's good to see you again. Welcome to Moat Cailin. My lords, please follow me. I will take you to your rooms. Later that day I met Enrique again and I offered him a tour of the Rock and Water Garden. The garden was finished recently using Japanese gardens as a template. In my opinion, it rivals the garden of Highgarden. It is beautiful. Enrique commented on the garden. It is. The garden is deigned to symbolize the balance and the opposites, I told him. Oh. Water and rock is the opposite of each other, one soft and fluid, while the other is hard and steady. Everything in life and the world is between these two extremes. They're complete opposite of each other, but together they balance and make world beautiful. That is amazing. Who came up with the idea? Enrique asked. The idea of representing balance and opposite in art is something one of my ancestors came up with. She lived about 500 years ago. She was a princess from Yee. This garden was a joint project by Lord Harold and me. You are beautiful both in and out, my lady, he said with an admiring gaze. Thank you, my lord. I am glad to share it with someone who understands the meaning behind it. Our stroll in the gardens was interrupted by Harry. Rowena. There you are. Lily is looking for you. Harry's point of view. Rowena excused herself and left, leaving Enrique with me. So Enrique. I hope you are enjoying Moat Cailin. I started. Yes, my lord. Very much. Rowena must really like you. This is the first time I saw her cozying up with a man despite many lords and knights wanting to. I tried helping out Rowena a little. The poor guy was first shocked and then pleased. I am well enchanted by her myself, Lord Harold, he replied. Well, something I should talk to your brother maybe? He blushed but nodded. At the dinner that night I asked to talk to Lord Mallister privately once the meal is finished. He accepted. Jason, thank you for joining me, I told him while offering a seat at my study. I was expecting Harold. Enrique mentioned something like this will happen, but I thought you will wait until the feast is done. Well, no time like present, I say. Indeed. Well, I cut to the chase, Jason. It looks like my cousin and your brother are taken with each other. If you are agreeable, I am not opposed to the union. Rowena is very dear to me. I am prepared to make any concessions for her if needed. I laid my cards on the table. What do you have in mind? I will offer to build a keep and buy land where they wanted. That's a very generous offer, Harold. Small price to pay for my cousin's happiness. Very well. As much as I want to give lands to my brother. I don't have any. We were not given much lands in the first place. Rowena had encountered a small village east of Seaguard on the banks of Green Fork. She liked that area. I know about the village you were talking about. Those lands belong to no one, so technically Tully's own it. Lord Tully will be here tomorrow. The feast went on smoothly. All guests were amazed of the wonders of Moat Cailin. Enrique's and Rowena's aren't the only marriage sparkled at Moat Cailin. Many lords and ladies made alliances. It's not common for nobles for a gathering of this size. Rowena's point of view, the feast was a huge success. Many trade agreements and alliances were made. I was happy to hear that betrothal talks with Lord Mallister went well. Harry and Lord Mallister later had a talk with Lord Tully and came to an agreement of the unnamed village. The village at most must have 100 families. Lord Tully agreed to create a lordship for Enric and grant the dominion of the village. Harry negotiated and purchased 500 acres additionally to farm for us. One by one all guests left, but Enric stayed to get to know me and my family better. Walking in the garden became a daily routine for us. "Everything is back to normal now, is it?" Enric asked on our first stroll after the feast. "Yes. As much as I looked forward to and excited about it, I am glad it's over. It was too much of work and responsibility for all the women of Gryffindor clan." "I understand. You have a big family." "Yeah, we are very close." "Are you happy about us, Rowena?" he asked a little hesitant. "Of course I am, Enric. Harry wouldn't agree if I didn't. We never arrange betrothal if the person involved is not happy." "I am glad, but I had to make sure. I am very happy about the arrangement. And I can't believe we are going to get our own land and a keep." "A castle, actually." I corrected him. "Castle? Yes, it will be a proper castle. Admit we will have a small keep in the beginning, but we can expand it." "You must have thought about it a lot. I have the castle designs drawn already. Would you like to see?" "I would love to see what my smart betrothed came up with," he said, amused. His skeptics flew away once I showed him the designs. "This is incredible. Do you think we can build this?" He was stunned for a minute or two before finally found his voice. "Definitely. Not right away though. You see this section? That will be the one to build first. Once it is completed, we can move." Enric is pretty smart. One of his many good qualities, he is loyal to a fault, honest and very caring. "I have one thing to ask from you, Enric." "What is it?" "I want you to answer it honestly and truthfully. I promise not to be mad at you regardless of the answer." "I will. What's the question? Do you have any bastard children?" That sure shook him up. He is 21 years old and I am not surprised if he did. "No, I don't. I have laid with girls, but I have never got anyone pregnant." "Good. I do not care what you did before we were betrothed, Enric. All I care is what you do now and the future." "I promise to be faithful, Rowena," he said, quite serious. "I believe you," so I replied. Enric stayed for 2 weeks. He left for Seaguard to select some guards that will be given to him by his lord brother. Lord Mallister promised to give him 20 guards and few servants. Harry promised to give me the same numbers. Construction of the keep started as soon as Enric reached the village. With Harry's permission I moved there as well so that I can supervise the construction and be with Enric. The idea of a bridge had to be brought forward as House of Frey declared a Cold War. They refused to allow passage for us unless we pay heavy toll. "I don't know what to do, Rowena. I can't go to war over this, and I can't pay the toll either," Enric told me, frustrated. "Do not worry, Enric. Those savages have no idea who they are messing with. Do you think Harry will just stay idle? I will send a message to my brother. He will send a ship for me to Seaguard. We are going to talk to Harry." I was pissed off to say the least. At the end, Harry agreed to build a bridge near the village. To cover the cost, he will operate the bridge for 5 years collecting toll. We had no problem agreeing to that. So Harry sent a large crew to start building the bridge. Meanwhile, the construction of the keep was going on. It took about a year to finish both the bridge and the keep. The bridge has its own 2 small defensive keeps at both ends. Harry stationed 25 men at each keep for protection. The village has gone through a considerable change. It is not a poor small village anymore. It is beginning to look like a small town. It was named Longbridge after the newly built bridge. Farming of our lands was started right after we got the lands a year ago. 50 acres of land were used to farm rice. 10 were reserved for strawberry. Another 50 was used to grow many types of fruit like pineapple and different type of berries, as I hope to become a major manufacturer of jam. Other crops like potato, maize and some spices were grown as well. Poor Enric had no idea about farming, but he was smart and a quick study. Enric and I married at a sept in Seaguard. Both Enric and I insisted that the ceremony be as simple as possible. Once the ceremony is done, We left for Longbridge, our seat of power so to speak. The town is the gateway from Riverlands to North and Northern Vale. We estimate that it is going to be grown to a city soon. Couple of months after our wedding the winter came. Thankfully we had time to prepare. Lily Gryffindor AN. I don't own anything. I have updated first 5 chapter with a little bit more information and timelines. Lily Gryffindor. One of the biggest drawbacks of being the Master of Death is that it leaves you unable to father a child. As a clone of Harry I feel and understand how difficult it was for him to accept that. He always dreamt of having a big family. Thankfully he learned to make clones. As unusual as it is, we are his family. We are part of him, literally. When I was created, he asked me if I consider taking the form of a female and be in charge of education. Before me there were no female clones. I didn't mind actually and chose to look like my mother and was named Lily after her. It was about 5 to 6 months after the grand feast of Winterfell. Harry had one of the towers reserved for a school, but it was not really enough. We had many children but few teachers and not enough space. So I met Harry to discuss about the issues. Harry, we simply don't have enough teachers to teach that many in the tower is not going to work. We will need more teachers and temporary shelters, I told Harry. I have a location set for a school, Lily, but no resources to build one for the moment. Housing is a priority at the moment. But I will get some people to start on that. Thank you. As for the teachers, can we ask some help from Lord Stark and other lords? How so? Harry asked. There must be people who can read and write. The lords must know few. We can pay them. Especially Lord Materley. White Harbor should have many. I can send a message to Lord Stark. He can ask from southern lords. Why don't you visit White Harbor and look around if you can find some teachers? I think that's a good idea. I will leave tomorrow. Can I take 5 Spartans with me? Of course. They will be ready tomorrow morning. Next morning I departed to White Harbor with the given guard. It's not like I need a guard, but it will be quite suspicious if I don't. The city, the only proper city the North has, is very impressive compared to other settlements of the North. White Harbor is beautiful its own way, with the cobblestoned wide roads leading everywhere and the whitewashed stone houses. It not only trade by sea, through the White Knife River, they trade much further to north. They say that if Winterfell is the heart of North, White Harbor is the mouth. Harry had sent a message to Lord Manderley of my arrival, so it was not a surprise to find a welcoming party. The leading man was about 20 years old, and from what he was wearing, it was evident that he is a high-born Lady Gryffindor. Welcome to White Harbor. I am Torrhen Manderley, nephew of Lord Manderley. I am here to escort you to your accommodation. And then Lord Manderley would like to meet you. He welcomed me with a bow. Thank you, Lord Torrhen. It is much appreciated. I am happy to meet Lord Manderley once I freshen up and change. As you can see, I am not dressed up for the occasion right now. As we took horses, my dress is borderline indecent for this society. I wore a skin-tight pant under a loose dress and knee-length boots. Torrhen didn't comment on my dress but gave me an acknowledging smile. Torrhen is a handsome man. He looked like a younger version of Robert Downey Jr. I didn't mind the eye candy. He escorted me to a room in the new castle. Torrhen left after introducing me a servant girl who was assigned to me temporary and promised to come back to escort me to dinner. I was not unaware of the reasons why he was at the welcoming party. Harry had informed everyone that both men and women of Gryffindor clan will marry whoever they want, and as the Lord he will not interfere. The sudden appearance of a female Gryffindor is a chance Lord Manderley would not pass. Lord Manderley is fat. There is no other way to put it. He doesn't seem to care about that fact or what others say about his body. When he laughed it felt like even the silverware I shaking. It is loud and booming. Generally he is a joyful guy. Many considered him to be craven and foolish, but a little peek of his mind assured me that he is a cunning, calculating and intelligent man behind the booming laugh. His loyalty to Starks is unshaken. He questioned me about myself and the life I had in Bravos. That was my cover story. He promised to send messages to few that he knows to use as teachers. I am sure I can find few within few days. I hope you don't mind waiting? He added. Not at all, my lord. Last time I was here I was only passing through. I do not mind spending a few days to explore your city. I pretended to not know why he is stalling. Very well. I am sure Torin wouldn't mind be the tour guide, he suggested. Not at all, uncle. If Lady Lily wouldn't mind, I am honored to show you our city, Torin said. Thank you, Lord Torin. It is much appreciated. I was lucky that Torin is a good guy. He is handsome, and from what I saw in his surface thoughts, he is genuinely good person. That is not to say he didn't have his problems. For one, he already has a basted child. Monogamy is not found commonly among nobles even in the honorable north. But I am not worried. Over a century I have learned few tricks to keep a man faithful. Magical marriage contract will not allow any party to be unfaithful. I spent almost a week in White Harbor. To the joy of Lord Manderley, I enjoyed the company of his nephew. I departed White Harbor with 8 teachers including Torin, who told me that he preferred to teach people to read and count than taking care of his uncle's business accounts. One of the reasons I liked Torin is his compassion. Unlike many highborn, he cared about the small folks. Regardless of his primary reason to follow me to Moat Cailin, he proved to be a valuable asset to our budding school. Torin is no warrior, but he is well educated. He has a passion for books. One of my side projects is to build a basic printing press. I will need paper and ink to go with it. Specially paper, because we need cheap paper for the school. How else they can learn to write? Unlike a normal lady, I didn't have a lot of time to socialize. I was busy with the school as well as the construction of the paper mill. Torin thankfully wasn't discouraged by this. I tried my best to spend a little time with him every day. Besides, he was busy with helping Harry do many things when he is not teaching. Religion was and still is quite the debate among Harry and his clones. It's a wonder when there is any debate on anything at all when we are in theory is the same person. None of us wanted to become atheists publicly. It cannot be done in this time and society. We will be following old gods like most of the North. But to what extent was the question? My argument is that we can cover up most of our magical effects by using religion. Weirwood trees were no-brainer. It will be grown extensively not just because of its religious significance, but also because of its magical properties. Unlike Harry, we can't do magic wandless. We can do simple things like summoning and banishing, but that's it. We can't even do a weakest shield charm. We rely on enchanted items for protection. We all wear weirwood rings enchanted to protect us from projectiles like arrows. It also has a local area intent-based ward. The daggers we carry coated with poison. We all are well skilled in Eastern martial arts. Harry spent couple of years training under Shaolin monks. We are well versed in both hand-to-hand and weapons like swords, spears and staves. I personally prefer the staff. Mine is made of weirwood. I infused it with my own blood and enforced with runes. The staff is stronger than iron and can crush a skull. As a magical staff, I can use it to cast some wide area battle spells. It's great for power enhancement but useless for finesse. So no hovering charm with it. I think Torin was having second thoughts just for a moment when he saw me practicing with it for the first time. About a month after we returned to Moat Cailin, Torin asked if I'll be interested in him more than a friend, for which I answered yes. From then we spent a little more time with each other so that we got to know each other better. Another 6 months later we married at the Sept of White Harbor. Moat Cailin was not yet ready for a celebration of this magnitude. Lord Manderley and Harry went all out as the union celebrates the joining of 2 powerful families. Lords, ladies and knights from north and south attended the wedding and the feast thereafter. As agreed by Harry, Torin and Lord Manderley, we moved to a small house in Moat Cailin. Harry commissioned a manor befitting our station. It resembles the York cottage of the English royals from our old world. It is not going to be completed anytime soon, unfortunately. With the limited human resources we have, we can't be building luxury residencies for us when some small folk still living in tents and temporary huts. Thankfully, a basic building for the school was finished few weeks ago. Now the school has a huge great hall that will be used for meals and gatherings and many classrooms of different sizes. A separate building was built to accommodate the teachers and other servants that serve the school. Large courtyard was there for students to practice swords, archery and other weapons. Our plan is to get every male and interested female trained to fight regardless they will join the forces or not. Females are taught usual things like sewing, cooking and simple healing. Harry and I had many discussions to finalize the curriculum. We will be teaching them reading and writing, history, maths and geography. I talked with Torrin and he agreed to teach things Nomalia Highborn was taught. He is in the process of compiling an encyclopedia of noble houses in Westeros. Although there is the book, The Lineages and Histories of the Great Houses of the Seven Kingdoms, it is filled with a lot of information. Torrin's book will not have all the history of noble houses. He will have their flags, mottos, family trees and a summarized history. Unlike the old book, his book will include both major and minor nobles including landed knights. He thinks that it will take him a year at least to get the information gathered and write the book. By then I will have a printing press created. Upon my insistence, Harry relented and we built a paper mill. It is powered by wind. Wood chip are common as the construction of many buildings are going on. With a little bit of addition of magic, it was up and running in no time. To create a better quality paper we add cotton imported from the Far East. The papers we create are clear, thinner and stronger and can withstand the sharp edges of a quill as good as a parchment. Apart from being used with education and administration, paper became a new source of income for Moat Cailin. It is cheap for us to make and can sell for a high price everywhere. Once I have the printing press, I am going to create letter-headed papers to sell nobles for a higher price than normal paper. Harry knew that a maester will be sent by the Citadel sooner or later, so before they did, he traveled to the Citadel himself and requested to choose one himself. He asked for a maester with a Valyrian steel link as he is interested in mystic arts. That was his cover. His personal visit and selecting a maester himself was quite unorthodox. Initially the Citadel was quite unhappy and refused his request. But Harry can be quite persuasive when he wants to. At the end, surprising everyone, he chose an archmaester, the Marwyn the Mage. He was again refused, saying that archmaesters are not sent to castles and that is a demotion. Harry had a private chat with the archmaester and explained why he was chosen. To Harry's surprise, he was the first person in this new world with an active magical core. Once explained, he was more than excited to travel with Harry to Moat Cailin. The aged maester ignored the pleas and threats by the Citadel and left with two of his acolytes. Harry made sure to get them signed contracts beforehand. I was elated to receive them since they came with a huge load of books. Torrin had to drag me away from those books for meals. One of the acolytes knew a lot about castle building, so Harry put him in charge of repairing the Moat Cailin castle. The other one, who we called Maester Samuel, became Harry's personal assistant. He organized his household and looked after all paperwork to Harry's relief. Since the castle was not touched yet, Harry and all his cloned brothers and I lived in a manor built in the town. It is a replica of Waddesdon Manor from our home country. Maester Samuel took charge of the household quickly and ran it very efficiently. For the first time we felt like nobility. Most of the time we didn't have to ask for things. Servants trained and instructed by Maester Samuel predicted our needs and made sure they were fulfilled. Torrin was given the post of chief secretary. He will be Harry's advisor and assistant in all non-personal matters, although we can just download knowledge from someone. It has nothing compared to having someone like Torrin who grew up learning the things all his life. My husband was quite happy with his post. For the moment he is the only secretary, but in the future he will need to recruit some assistants for him. Year of 280 AC. Moat Cailin came a long way from its early days. The city is only second to White Harbor in north in population with 20,000. It could be a lot bigger, but we made sure to screen who we take in. Over the years we have sent hundreds of scouts to find magicals throughout Westeros and Essos, and they have succeeded in finding them. The city is finally named London as it is our capital for all intents and purposes. The city is the hub of an impressive road network. Almost all major settlements are connected with proper roads. The road development was a project that other nobles disregard initially. Once the road to Winterfell from London was completed, their attitudes were changed. All lords were quite happy to build roads just like that afterwards. A new road from London to Longbridge is proposed and most likely will be approved soon. London City itself is a wonder. It looks like a city from Reach the North. This is thanks to clever application of climate and weather. Wards we have set up. The city is warmer than the surrounding and quite comfortable. It has gardens that rival Highgarden of Reach thanks to the efforts of Rowena. Most of all, without a doubt, London is the cleanest city in the known world. Everything was perfect until the winter came, but we were prepared better than anyone. Thanks everyone for the reviews. Vepmoon96, thank you for your advice. I will try to be more descriptive. I admit I am quite bad at it. Nixagotness, thank you. Lord Frey will not be happy to say the least, but he can't declare war based on that. He will try something, I am sure. Let's wait and see. For now he has winter to prepare for. 917 Brat. As you can see, I have coupled John and Harry. There will be a huge age gap. I have to come up with a way to deal with that. I have few ideas. Wait and see how it will play out. Harry can't be the Lord Gryffindor forever. Someone has to replace him. Samael, the Fallen. Thank you. This is the first time I heard of them. I need to read about them a little and hoping to add it to Chapter 7. Kellen and Taylor. Kellen Ravenclaw, since a clone is a perfect copy of the creator. I knew what Harry had in mind for me. I was quite happy to take the form of the actor Kellen Lutz from our old world. My job is to lead our naval fleet in the Sunset Sea. Harry has a single Kingfisher-class ship ready for me. That's all we had. I did most of the work on the ship myself with help from the crew selected. We have 20 sailors and 30 Spartans. First task was to rune-enforce the hull. By adding the rune of indestructible, you can make it unbreakable. That means no ship can ram our ship. They can try, but it will be their ship that will break. The second task is to ward it against intrusion. This is a bit tricky. Normally a ward stone once power draw magic from the earth. A ward stone in a ship has no such luck. This means the ward scheme needed to be creative and it need constant recharging. If I use volcanic stones, the ward can survive 6 months. After that it will not be very effective. Unfortunately, you need to have an active magical core to power wards. That means we need to have a stock. As for the weapons, I fixed 2 large crossbows in front deck that can shoot an arrow to a target 500 meters away. Magic is of course used to achieve that. The arrow is 4 feet long and has a steel head. It is again rune-enforced so that it can easily pierce a ship hull. And the arrow will explode once stuck, maximizing the effect. London is far away from the western coast. But the Fever River starts 20 kilometers east of the city. The river is deep enough for the ship now named Hercules to sail almost to the beginning of the river. House Reed and House Gryffindor together going to start a new settlement called Marsh Port. It will be built on the bank of River Fever where the new harbor and port is proposed. It is not an easy task. It will require all of Clan Gryffindor to create the harbor. The river itself needs to be widened in some places. That will be the job of House Reed. It took us half a year to widen and deepen the required areas to create a harbor. Once that is done, the port was built quickly. House Reed and their banner men will send 100 families to settle while we could only end 50. However, the families we sent are all sailors. They will train Cranogman how to sail and captain a ship. Meanwhile, I tried to do my best to patrol the area with the only ship we have. Few instances we were in battle with pirates resulted in our easy victory. I am also supervising the Western Shipyard. It is located west of the mouth of Fever River. As we have a very limited number of resources, it is slow going. In my calculations, I believe it will take a year at least for it to start building the first ship. My ship was being used both as a warship and a trade ship. With the ship I sailed to Deepwood Motte and Bear Island taking trade goods from London. Harry sent instructions to initiate contact with hill clans of northern mountains. The most powerful clan, the Wool, lives near the coast of Bay of Ice. I was instructed to build a few sturdier large fishing boats to gift them once the shipyard is built. As the hill clans were not present at the Feast of Winterfell, Harry told me that he will send the next clone to hill clans as a representative. His job will be to develop ties with London and improve the livelihood of the clans. They are the poorest in the north. Harry hoped that better boats for fishing, teaching them to farm and animal husbandry will improve their lives considerably. The clans are the most vulnerable at winters. They send their young to Winter Town and very few elders survive when the winter comes. The representative will have to deal with the constant warring of the clans as well. If he manages to unite the clans, they can be a very powerful force. Marshport was slowly taking shape. Harry sent people to teach Cranogman how to prepare fields for rice farming. A ship full of paddy should be here in a couple of months. Initially we will be planting several types of rice to see which suits better. House Reed planned to prepare 50 acres to test 50 types initially. Year of 280 AC, Marshport is a real town now with around 5,000 townsfolk. Trade ships from the town travel as far as the Summer Islands. I command a fleet consist of 9 Ares-class ships and my flagship Poseidon. We had constant skirmishes with Ironborn first few years, but now it's very rare. That is not to say they have given up completely. But they learned not to come near a ship with a flag of Gryffindor. We have a trade fleet of 25 ships which call Marshport home. Clan Gryffindor owns 22 of them while House Reed owns 3. Mountain clans now have their own common port they come to trade. Bear Island is now making use of their vast woods to make oak barrels that is in high demand because of the rising trade. All settlements of western side of the north benefited from the development brought by us. Barrowlands and the Rills with vast amount of empty arable lands are now slowly transforming to farmlands. Introducing cast iron multi-furrow wheeled plow was one of the best things I did for this world. Just like in my old world, this allowed the food production to increase significantly. In addition, more concepts like collective farming and crop rotation was introduced to our farming lands. We hope that other northern farmers will follow once they see the advantages. One of the 2 branches of White Knife River starts from Lonely Hills and goes south via Shepherded Hills. This river was interrupted twice. Once in the lower part of the Lonely Hills and again lower part of Shepherd Hills, creating 2 large tanks. They provide water to lands east of Winterfell and lands south of Serwyn, allowing the expansion of farmlands. Barrowlands and the Rills already have few natural lakes and only needed a proper canal system. Food preservation is another concept we have introduced. Thankfully, salt is not rare in this world. In my old world, in old times it was so rare and expensive that Roman soldiers were paid their salary in salt. With abundance of salt, curing of fish and meat were easy. Pickling of vegetable and fruit was another method introduced. Pickled vegetable became popular as a side dish to go with rice. Korean kimchi became so famous and now considered northern delicacy. Rowena took over experimenting with fruit. She now grows a lot of strawberries and some other types of berries. London grows strawberry twice as much as Longbridge. Rowena has a lot of greenhouses and she continues to experiment with exotic fruit and vegetable from east. House Mallister of Longbridge and House Gryffindor together started a jam factory in Plymouth. As there is already a glass workshop in Plymouth, they can easily get the glass jars they want. Many lords of the North and the Riverlands didn't care much of our fanatic attempts of food security. But then the winter came. Who's laughing now? Taylor Slytherin, our Lord Harry, has a weird sense of humor. He gave the command of Western Fleet to Kellen, who resembles the actor played a vampire in a movie. And then he made me resembling the actor who played the mortal enemy of the vampires, a wolf shifter. I was given the same first name as the actor, just like with Kellen. Neither of us was unhappy about how we look. No sane person will. Eastern coast is completely different from the west. For one, it has contact with a lot more ports than west, both of Westeros and Essos. Harry had several ships when I was created. He didn't need me to take care of them as the captains of the ships already were doing a good job. My first task was to establish a base in our eastern shore. White Harbor is being used as our port for the moment with the permission of Lord Manderley, who we have good relations with. The marriage between Lily and Torrin solidified the relationship. Harry didn't want to build a port that will be a competition to White Harbor. At the same time, he didn't want to anchor our future battle fleet there. Harry came to an agreement with Lord Manderley. As long as White Harbor can accommodate the traffic, all our trade ships will use White Harbor. And Lord Manderley will give our ships the same privileges of his own ships. We agreed not to use our own future port as a trade port. With that agreement, we expanded the small fishing harbor and start building a shipyard. Within a year both the port and the shipyard was built. First order for the ships was 10 smaller ships of 50 feet long. They were made in 2 configurations. 5 of them were made as trade ships and the other 5 as battleships. The trade ships were of the already existing Kingfisher class. The ships made for battle were named Ares after Greek god of war. The 5 trade ships started trading as soon as they finished. Experienced sailors were found in many cities of the Westeros and Essos by our agents and scouts. Same with young and hopeful merchants that is waiting for an opportunity. The ships manned by these sailors, Spartans and merchants started trading with nearest 5 cities. Their Bravos, Lorith, Gulltown, King's Landing and Pentos. All these cities had our agents in the form of our clones. This allowed the larger 150 feet long Hedwig-class ships to travel to distant cities like Karth and even beyond the Jade Gate. Interesting fact about ships and navigation of this world: they have not yet invented compass, and they have no knowledge of hydrodynamics. I myself do not know a lot, but with the limited knowledge I at least know the correct way to go in experimenting. The new ships that are being built heavily use runes from structural integrity to defense. In addition, the ships have something no ship this world has seen: a propeller. Thanks to magic, we do not need an engine. The propeller is charmed to animate using magic. The only disadvantage is that it needs Harry to enchant it. While we, the clones, can do simple charms, something of this magnitude and finesse can be done only by him. Thankfully, once charmed, it will continue to work without any interference. But this means that the ship can only be controlled by a magical year of 280 AL. Over last few years the port town of Plymouth has grown. Due to all the changes in the north, sea trade has increased exponentially. Due to the increased traffic, we had to move our trade ships from White Harbor with agreement of Lord Manderley. The port Plymouth still only handles our own ships, but that number has increased to around 100 trade ships and 25 battleships, including my 150 feet flagship Neptune. A smaller trade town was grown around the port. It also has a lace factory and the jam factory. It was proposed to expand it to process more types of food. Speaking of trade, it made the clan Gryffindor the richest house of Westeros. Rather than flaunting our wealth like Lannisters or Tyrells, we reinvested them in developing our lands, expanding trade and developing human resource, as well as developing the road network of the North. That is not to say we didn't use the wealth for our own comfort and luxury. Harry made sure all his clone brothers and sisters get their own fair share of the wealth. I built myself a small castle on a cliff bordering the sea. Like any of my clone brothers and sisters, a big family of my own is the greatest desire of mine. I built the castle having that in mind. The family wing has 15 suites for a larger family. The castle has large windows thanks to our glass workshop. Most floors facing the sea has floor-to-ceiling windows, which is never seen in Westeros or Essos. They make a perfect picture frame of the beautiful view. Speaking of family, I met a remarkable lady and his brother in Planky Town. I was on a mission by Harry to Martells of Sunspear. With the creation of roads and the growth of traffic between different settlements, the number of thieves and bandits increased. At the previous Harvest Fest of Winterfell, the assembled lords agreed to create a common force to patrol these roads. I am here in Dorne on behalf of Northern lords to buy a large number of sand steeds. Dornish sand steeds are famous for their speed. They are however not suitable for war, as they cannot bear the weight of armor like a war horse. But for what we have in mind, they are perfect. The plan is to buy 100 horses initially. The trade talks were very successful. Especially when I told Doran Martell that gout can be partially cured by our healers. Aaron was instructed by Doran to see to my needs. He is to be my assistant and guide to Dorne. The world we came to is a harsh and bloody one. Harry instructed us to use the mind arts for our advantage but not to abuse it. So I have looked at his surface thoughts and found his not-so-innocent thoughts towards me. Intrigued, I dig a little deeper and learned that more than once Aaron and his sister have shared partners. They are not incestuous in the least. They have never done a threesome with both of them as participants. Aaron Santagar of Spotswood is third son of a landed knight house sworn to Sunspear. The book, The Conquest of Dorne, the Knight of Spotswood stabled his horse in his hall. It was given as an example to show how Dornishmen love their sand steeds. According to the same book's clarification, Santagars are stony Dornishmen who has the fairest skin among Dornishmen. Aaron was 17 years old and his sister 18. They both have sandy blonde hair and brown eyes. Aaron is 6 feet tall, 2 inches shorter than me. He is slim but not skinny. What I love most is his cocky smirk. In short, he is hot. I have learned later that he can shoot an arrow riding his horse better than most stationed archers. His sister Silva, on the other hand, is a foot shorter than me. She is without a doubt a very beautiful woman. She has curves in right places. She looks delicious. My trip was exciting to say the least. A year and a half after my first visit, I married Silva with blessings of Harry and her father. Aaron moved to Plymouth with us since he missed his sister too much. He had the suite next to us in my castle, which was given the name White Hall because of the color of castle. The white stones used were quarried in Vale. My suite and Aaron's suite has a connecting door hidden behind a large banner. Initially, our ships were attacked by pirates in the narrow sea, especially near the stepstones. Unfortunate for them, even our trade ships are armed. Ramming our ship only resulted in breaking attackers' ship. Exploding arrows shot by both our archers and huge crossbows more often than not destroyed ships before they came near. Most of all, no ship can match our speed, so good luck catching up. The pirates of Stepstones became a nuisance than anything else. Occasionally we sailed to Stepstones with few ships and attacked pirates, but mostly we left it alone. What we couldn't ignore was the Three Sisters. The 3 islands wed to Plymouth has become a safe haven for smugglers in. Occasional pirate. I have informed Lord Sunderland several times, but there was no action taken. Then Harry escalated the issue with Lord Aaron since it belonged to Vale. Unfortunately, Vale's hold of 3 Sisters is loose to say the least. Harry personally went to meet Lord Aaron and told him that if things didn't change within 3 months, we will take military action against 3 Sisters. Unfortunately, Lord Aaron couldn't control them. That resulted in the first major battle for our navy and army. 3 agents were sent to the islands to gather information first. After the warned 3 months, 3 battle groups were formed, 1 for each island. All at once the ports were blocked to avoid any ship escaping. The Spartans, 500 each, landed and met very feeble resistance. Besieging of castles. Were very with our mobile siege weapons. One by one all 3 islands surrendered. Then we collected proven pirates and smugglers and gave them the options of beheading or taking the black. Everyone chose taking the black. More than half of the offenders were sons, nephews, son-in-laws or other relatives of the lords. They were sent to the wall and we confiscated 22 ships. We didn't really want the ships, but we were not going to leave them with the offending lords. They were sent to the shipyard and repaired. Some magical protections were added as well. 3 ships were sent to Eastwatch by the sea. 1 ship each was given to all major lords of the north. For most of them it was the first time they owned a ship and their men had to be trained. Once distributed 4 left and was given to Starks. These ships might not be as good as our ships, but they are match for any other ship with the magical additions. And thanks for the reviews. I have few pause before the story move forward like Starks, Reed, Frey and Harry himself. I will not rewrite the canon. So the parts you know will be very short in the future. I will only write my additions. Do not expect lengthy descriptions of battles. Mostly because I am simply incapable of writing battle scenes. Sex scenes as well. About clones. They are not infertile, they can have kids. A clone turned female can have a child naturally. I have not seen Naruto, so I did a little research. Harry's clones are not like Naruto's. When you create a clone, you sacrifices your life force. That means for each day the clone live, you will lose a day from your life. That halves the number of years you have to live. Harry fortunately is immortal. Also, Harry does not get the memories of the clones automatically. If he need them, he will have to download them. About English and grammar, thanks a lot for everyone who pointed out mistakes. I admit my English skills needs a lot of improving. My excuse is that it is not my native language and it's mostly self-learned. I am glad if you can point out my mistakes so that I can improve. About Harry's future. How will Harry continue to live is a question even I have. I am debating with few ideas. Harry is not going to be an illegitimate son of himself or his clone. He is not the boy in the cupboard under the stairs anymore. He worked hard to establish his own fiefdom and he is not going to give up completely. Just like he did for Rowena, he can always buy land from someone and create a new noble house. Rickard Stark AN. I don't own any of these. Rickard Stark. When Harold Gryffindor offered me anything I want for the castle and lands of Moat Cailin, I didn't know what to think of the man. He was confident without being cocky. I was quite speechless at first and more so when he offered outrageous amount of money. So I tried my luck and started bargaining. Then he increased the amount of land he wants. At the end I promised high lands more than few lords collectively hold. That is not to say I got the short end of the bargain. I bagged more gold than I can imagine and a new lord who is wealthier than Lannisters. He thought he is being clever by replacing unsullied armor. I knew from the first glance who they really are when they accompanied the young lord with promised money. I chose not to act rashly and questioned him in private. Then he explained me the deal with them. It was clever. I had no problem as long as they are not slaves. I spoke with some of them and confirmed the story. Thanks to the money received, I could start much needed repairs to Winterfell. I ordered repairs to both the first keep, the oldest part of the castle, and the broken tower, which was destroyed by a lightning. The courtyards were laid with stones so that it wouldn't be muddy all the time. Every part from stable to the great hall is being given a new look. The walls were scrubbed and the furniture were repaired or replaced. By the time the feast came, Winterfell looked a lot different than it used to be. My lords were not really happy about someone completely unknown coming and establishing in the north, but I was confident that Harold will win them over. And he did. I do not know how in the name of old gods he found all those Valyrian steel weapons. I don't care to be honest. Now the House Stark owns 3 Valyrian steel swords, 1 each for my sons. Harold's generosity didn't stop from there. He gave each lord a Valyrian steel dagger and many rare fabrics for ladies and other gifts for young people. It was evident Harold wanted the North to accept and like him. It all went well. He made connections with all the lords. He even made peace with Lord Manderley and Lord Reed. I am not sure what he promised them and I do not want to know. The speed of his town London was built is remarkable. Thanks to his loyal brothers, sisters and cousins, I am sure. The Gryffindor clan they called themselves, which includes several families that didn't bear the Gryffindor name. I am not sure where they are coming from. They came from everywhere. Suddenly there were about 100 of them everywhere. He sent representatives to each lord to advise them. The maesters were quite put out by this. My own maester ranted for hours when he refused to accept the maester sent by the citadel and went there to choose one himself. To everyone's surprise, he chose the Archmaester Marwyn, and according to what my maester told me, the Archmaester agreed to come with him once they had a long conversation in private. It must have been quite the conversation. This, however, added the fuel to the rumors going around. I have heard whispers about Harold being the god's chosen and his clan came to the north because of a blood call. These people can be quite creative, so I dismissed them even though his achievements are quite miraculous. But even I had doubts when Archmaester Marwyn came with his 2 acolytes. He wouldn't come if there is nothing mystical to study. I asked the young lord about being called the Chosen One and about magic. He told me that we of the North are old gods chosen. He said the blood of the first men hear the call if they dare to listen. He told me magic is in the lands, in weirwood trees and in blood of the first men. Then he began to tell me tales about old gods that his family kept. I admit they were fascinating. He asked me to come to London for next harvest feast and feel the old gods myself. So I did, as well as few other lords. We observed their harvest ritual. It was simple enough. In their godswood, they had a large fire. They burned a token portion of the harvest as an offering to the gods. I was surprised to see members of House Reed and some of his more notable bannermen participating. Once everyone offered their portions, the members of Clan Gryffindor started chanting in Old Tongue. We were later explained that it was a prayer thanking the old god for their blessings and thanking children of the forest for their wisdom. As soon as the prayer was finished, the fire burned intensely as the gods themselves answered. A moment later we all felt it. For me it felt like I am on top of the highest tower of Winterfell. Wind blowing and I felt like flying. It was the calmest I felt in my whole life. The feeling lasted only for a minute or two. I looked around and saw the wonder, shock and disbelief of my fellow lords who were observing. At that point in time, London was still a lot of disorganized buildings. Harold had a temporary building erected for a feast. The lords drilled him of what happened and he patiently answered that it's something his family has been doing for a long time. Everyone who came to observe went home with a renowned sense of devotion to old gods. I myself went to Winterfell's own godswoods as soon as I reached home. To add to his clan's achievements, one of his many cousins managed to unite the hill clans of northern mountains. A feat Starks couldn't achieve for thousands of years. To be fair, we didn't have the wealth of Lord Harold or Silvertongue all his kin seems to possess. It took almost a year, but a council of hill clan lords with Lord Harold's representative and myself came to a treaty. The hill clans agreed to divide the mountains and set loose boundaries. They also agreed to create a council as their ruling body. Harold's cousin promised on behalf of his cousin to extend his stay with the hill clans and teach them how to improve their lives. I promised to help them to create a neutral port in the Bay of Ice. Everyone was happy. I wish all disputes among my lords can be solved as easy as this. Mountain Clan is not the only people who had a visit from a Gryffindor representative. Harold called them scholars. That means learned men or women, he said. A cold war started between maesters and scholars soon after. But it was evident that the scholars had knowledge well beyond maesters. The Winterfell's scholar, a Myrish cousin of Harold named Sid Bomer. What a weird name. When he told me the idea of creating a man-made lake to bring water to farmlands with canals, I was more than a little skeptical. He then drew many drawings and explained his ideas. If it works, we can triple the lands used to farm. He showed me that using the White Knife River we can build 2 of them. His estimate was that once both projects are finished, we can expect 7 times more land use for farming. I agreed to the smaller one first. I continued to amaze myself with genius of these men and knowledge they brought us. It took us a year to complete the first barrier called the dam. It would take this long, but I was reluctant to use more men for the project. It was a smashing success. The project delivered everything promised. I approved the second dam without any hesitation. Winterfell is not the only one benefited from scholars. Most of the maesters learned to live peacefully with scholars and some became humble enough to study under them. Whoever couldn't deal with them was replaced because the North soon found out the value of the scholars. Each and every one of them took young boys and girls under their tutelage and started to teach them whatever needed so that they will replace the scholars one day. Sid told me that Lord Harold's sister is in charge of creating a school where all children, both noble and common, can learn letters and numbers among other things. I didn't understand the use of that. Sid tried to explain about raising a merchant class, but I didn't pay much attention. Year of 280 AC. The North progressed in the last 5 years than the last 1,000 years thanks to one amazing young man. I was ever so happy that I gave him a chance. We are not dependent of South for food anymore. With new farming methods introduced and irrigation systems, for the first time in history we can feed ourselves. It's not just the quantity, the quality of food increased as well. Harold and his clan introduced many different types of vegetable, fruit and new recipes and food preparation methods. Most of new types are grown on a small scale for the moment and quite expensive. Only the rich and noble can afford them. But Harold assured me that it will change. Rice perhaps is the best of them all. It took a little getting used to initially. But I understood Tay's importance as a grain that can be stored indefinitely. Harold makes sure he sends me a cart full of foodstuffs once every couple of months. Developing of the road network is something I wholeheartedly approved of. He didn't need more words to convince me. The proper road network has reduced the traveling time between towns considerably. And it doesn't help with trade either. Unfortunately, with increased trade and wealth on roads attracted thieves and bandits. The lords of the north decided to create an independent force to deal with them. Younger son of Lord Greengood a Cranogman, named Jaren, was chosen as the captain with the suggestion of Chris Gryffindor, the commander of Gryffindor army. The young man of 22 years has been learning under the commander and has served in many capacities including a term at Night's Watch. Although young, the commander assured that he is more than capable enough. Each Lord of North will provide men initially. The force named Northern Rangers will not owe their allegiance to any single lord. They will be like a city guard. Only difference is that they are mobile. The Rangers will be financed by the lords and by the new highway tax imposed on merchants. The tax is small enough not to worry the merchants. Harold is considered a kind, gentle and joyful person by both nobles and small folks alike. We learned that he is no pushover when the Lords of Three Sisters and Lord Aaron failed to deal with the smugglers and pirates. What later known as the Battle of the Three Sisters, he crushed the defenses of the castles ruthlessly. And then he completely destroyed the keeps. Then he seized all the ships and burned the ports. They shouldn't have poked the sleeping griffin, he told me. Even though no Lord of the North made any contribution, he gave a ship each after repairing them. Winterfell received 5 of them. The changes in the North didn't go unnoticed by the Lords of South and the king himself. A year after the Moat Cailin was given, Harold was called to the capital by the king. Harold avoids talking about what happened there. All I know is that he spoke to the king in private regardless of protests by the hand Tywin Lannister. Somehow since then the king ignored the North. Since Harold has many brothers, sisters and cousins, many lords of North and South sought out an alliance through marriage. Harold told the northern lords that his family gives a lot of freedom to the individual when it comes to marriage. In most cases men and women of his family chose their own whom to marry, regardless. Lords Reed, Manderley and Mallister married their daughter, nephew and brother to the clan. Rowena, sister of Western Fleet commander who married a Mallister, was given lands and a keep was built by Harold. One thing is for sure, he takes care of his family well and I admire him for that. The North is changed beyond recognition. So when the winter came, I said, let it come. We are ready. And next chapter will be Harry's point of view of the past 5 years and the winter before Robert's rebellion. Thanks for the reviews and suggestions. Harold Gryffindor. I do not own HP or got chapter 9. Harold Gryffindor. It doesn't matter how devoted, reliable and trustworthy your minions are or how many of those you have. You will not be able to have the success I had of creating your own little kingdom in a very short time. Well, it's not exactly a kingdom as I owe my allegiance to Winterfell and then to the Iron Throne. Anyway, my success rightfully belongs to my cloned brothers and sisters. They are practically me. So I need not to worry and doubt them even though they do not have my power or control. They were appointed to all the important positions from Commander of the Fleet to Dean of Oxford. It is impossible for them to betray me. Magic ensure that. Still I made sure they want for nothing. Many like Lily, Rowena, Taylor and Kellen owns castles and palaces rival any Lord of the Westeros. I tried my best to secure their future. Unlike me, they will marry and start families. I wanted their descendants taken care as well. The next generation has started to arrive. Lily's son is turned 2 years old and Kellen's wife is pregnant. One day in future, they will have to be included in the secret. My brothers and sisters are completely loyal to me and they are as uncorrectable as me. But that wouldn't be the same with their children. Ambition and greed tore apart many great families and dynasties. I will also have to come up with a way to continue to be the Lord Gryffindor. As I am infertile, I will have to find a way to sire heir. Thankfully that can wait for a while. I have married a clone brother disguised as a daughter of a Carthian merchant as questions were asked why I am not married. My bride unfortunately died of an illness several months later. Now the dutiful and loyal husband is not ready even to hear the word marriage. This wouldn't last, but at least for the moment I am safe. Over the last 5 years, House Gryffindor became the third richest house of Westeros behind Lannisters and Tyrells. But that is not considering our holdings in many cities of Essos. The fortune of House Gryffindor bled to rest of the north. This didn't go unnoticed by the south and the king. A year after I was officially given the moat, Kaelin, the king summoned me to the capital. I have briefly visited King's Landing before. It smelled worse than the worst slums of my previous world. I was simply disgusted. I have prepared my visit this time with some elaborate presents for the royal family. Kings and royals are a freckle thing. They are often and easily offended and placated by gifts. The king himself disappointed me greater than the city. If he wasn't on the Iron Throne, I would take him for a beggar in Flea Bottom. And he seems like lost more than few marbles. Coupled with paranoia worse than mad eye, that's a very dangerous combination. I made a decision then and there to harden the defenses and strengthen the military as soon as I leave this pit of shit and piss. The Valyrian short sword I presented to the king was well received. I had a peek in his head as well as his hand Tywin Lannister to learn that it was the Lannister who wanted me here. I cast a mild compulsion to the king so that he will agree to a private discussion. Once we were in his solar, I gave him a charmed bracelet for his protection. The bracelet contains a strong compulsion to leave the north alone. He will not care as long as we don't do anything warrant his attention. Early morning next day, I went back to London. I am sure Lannister will not give up that easily. I can do nothing but wait and see. Brandon and I became very good friends and Lord Rickard like an uncle. Both of them were sad that Lyanna is already promised to another. I gently explained that we marry for love and Brandon said he envies me for that. That didn't stop them sending Benjen to sniff around Rowena. Unfortunate for him, a Mallister already got there first. About a year after the grand feast of Winterfell, I traveled beyond the wall to explore the true north. For weeks I silently and invisibly studied the trees, wildlife and the free folk. I was surprised but glad to find that the stories of skin changers are in fact true. There were very few actual skin changers but many who can be trained reside in the north. South call the north savages and the north call free folk savages. Of those two, free folk truly deserve the name. My first idea was to get them settled in my lands but I realized that they will not be able to adjust. All my efforts in the north will be for nothing if I bring them south of the wall and they continue their customs. I am however not going to say no to wargs. I approached them one by one and made some offers they can't really refuse. Permanent home, food and safety are not something to shrug off. I started kidnapping orphan children from free folks and felt no guilt about it. I can provide them far better life. As they are quite young, it is easy to integrate to civilization. My attempts at creating a wand were fruitless. My knowledge of wand lore is very minimal, but the biggest obstacle is obtaining the parts. There is nothing to use as wand core. I looked at so-called unicorns of Skagos and basilisks in Summer Sea but they are not at all what we know as unicorn and basilisks. Only magical creature we found is the type of falcon we now use as messenger birds but their feathers are useless as wand cores. Lily managed to create a staff with blood as a core. The large size if the weirwood staff allows the minimal control it has over the volatile nature of magical blood. This is the only magical focus we have right now. Unfortunately my clones can use it because of their large magical reserves. But their children will be another story. But then again it might not be so bad after all. I mean, do I really need powerful magic users with wands that I can't truly control? Speaking of control, I had to increase my military forces more than I thought. The thing about my military force is that they are not limited to one task. They work on rotation basis. About 1,000 works as a city guard in London, Plymouth and Marshtown. Another 100 is set up as light cavalry unit patrolling the villages and hamlets in my land. Until the Northern Rangers were created, they acted as highway guards as well. Different numbers works in many navy and trade ships. All men at arms work at least 6 months in the wall. It was a chore and a half getting the Lord Commander to agree to short-term agreement. I almost Imperio used him. I do not think he regrets agreeing, as now the wall is better manned. Many in the north think serving at wall is an honorable thing. But very few will want to. Lifelong commitment and give up women. I was not at all ready or prepared for the pirate infestation in the Narrow Sea and the Sunset Sea. Initially I thought of keeping few ships as purely military, but that had to be changed. My ships will have no trouble evading them because of their superior speed, but other ships are not that lucky. I wanted to establish a naval base somewhere near the Stepstones as a solution, but that will have to wait until Mad King dies. Oxford, our own answer to Maester's Citadel, was a great success. All children from age 7 to 12 are entitled to free education. That is if their parents or guardians are registered citizens. The registering process takes care of signing the loyalty agreement. Registered citizen and their dependents are eligible for other privileges such as free health care and loans for purchasing a house or starting a business. Age of adulthood is considered 16 and all men and women are expected to sign loyalty agreement. All citizens receive and wear a bracelet to signify their citizenship. The bracelet is laid with many enchantments. They are used as an access device for warded areas as well as a tracking device. That in terms tied to one of my greatest inventions ever. Well, me and 4 of my clone brothers actually. In the Moat Cailin Castle, there is a room only my clones and I have access to. The room houses a huge table of 50 by 100 feet. On the tabletop there is the biggest map this world ever seen. The map shows all lands and sea known to men at this moment. That means Westeros, Essos and parts of other continents. Using the tracking devices I can track my military positions and if needed any citizen. The map based on the Marauders map has many features its predecessor didn't, such as zoom feather and the search feature. While it uses magic, inspiration for many features came from Muggle technology. It works like a giant Muggle touchscreen display. We keep trying to improve it. Marauders map didn't need a tracking device on people to track them. It used a passive connection to the Hogwarts wards to identify. How the Marauders tapped the wards and not alert the headmaster is a mystery to me. A smaller version of this is available for the captain of the city guard Liam at London. The city map, however, works just like the Marauders map. It is tied to an identification ward set over the whole city. I can't cast a ward over Westeros. It's too big and even I am not as powerful as that. Few of us who worked on this came up with a solution using runestones. The inspiration came with the magical detection grid my old world used. There we had a country-wide detection grid that can detect any magic used, intentional or accidental. It cannot identify what spell cast or who did it. Only the intensity. This is used to detect underage magic control and cleanups after accidental magic in Muggle areas. Taking the same method and principle, we are in the process of placing rune stones to cover the whole continent. The rune stones used in my old world can cover a larger area and the grid had few hundred of them. Here unfortunately the rune stones we have can cover a smaller area. There are 2 reasons for that. One, the base material, the volcano stones, while the best in this world, has nothing on the magical crystals in my old world. The other reason is that the identification of humans is going to take a lot of power. So that in turn limits the reach. It's going to take a lot of time to cover Westeros. Many of my clone siblings have developed their own characteristics, interests and ambitions. I made a deal with them because of this. They have to serve 10 years as instructed by me in any capacity I assign. In return, they can do whatever they want after that. Many will want to travel and see the world. I envy them. Some of them developed strange traits and ambitions. Strange for a clone of Harry Potter, that is. One of them, who I, the Scholar of Winterfell, want to open a proper star-class restaurant, I was told. How he came to love cooking I have no idea. The strangest of them all is another who wants to open a theater, concert hall of all things. I admit I really miss forms of art from my old world. I cringe every time I hear what passed to be as music in this world. While I enjoyed few Murmurs shows I have seen, they have nothing on shows of West End or Broadway. Regardless, I can't understand dedicating your life to add culture to these barren lands and add color to the gray canvas of the North. His words, not mine. I suppose I should be glad both of them want to do whatever they want here. They could have gone to free cities. I for one can't wait for them to start. I have decided very early that I am not going to advance this world to the full potential as far as science and technology goes. I came from a world where so-called progress had destroyed the world. Increasing sea levels had destroyed island nations like Maldives and countries like Netherlands. Many animals, both magical and mundane, died out. Men found ways to kill many, and the methods became ever so easy to kill millions in few seconds. Westeros is an unspoiled world, and I do my best to keep it that way. Having said that, it doesn't mean I can't change few things. New farming methods and tools were introduced so that people will not go hungry. Food preservation was taught to be ready for winter. Few machines were also introduced which will not use depleting source as energy. One of the first introductions is the water pump. It was essential for my new house design with indoor bathrooms and toilets. Creating water springs using rune stone was easy, but I needed a way to carry water to homes. A large water tank was created to hold the water, and a windmill-powered pump helped to deliver water to the tank. From there it can serve 250 houses. Northern Water Supply Company is one of the very first companies formed. They are responsible for developing the infrastructure and operate the water supply. There were inquiries for similar setups from many others, but no one dared to go ahead due to the high initial investments. The company, however, is in talks with some joint ventures with few cities like Lannisport and Aldtown. Windmills are a common scene in my lands and few other places in the north now. We have used a windmill to power our paper factory. Paper and printing press is another victory. It took years to get it right. We knew the theory, but implementing it is another story. Thankfully, it all came together. Paper is one of the most popular exports of London. We have stared to print books, but only small scale and for our own needs. Moat Cailin Castle was ready just in time for the 5th year anniversary of London. The castle is another thing I am proud of. The 3 remaining towers mostly left, as it is only repairing them keeping their original character. All 17 of other towers once stood were rebuilt. While we had drawings and descriptions of some of them, a complete new plan was created. Especially with the ability to make glass sheets, I made sure to build the towers with ample light and cross ventilation. The topmost floor of each tower was made into a glass garden, and the floor below it has a water tank. Rising above the glass gardens are the windmills that pump water to tanks. The new Great Hall can seat 1,000 at once, and 2 walls of the hall has floor-to-ceiling fixed glass window. From the ceiling hang many chandeliers made by the glassworkers of London. They are as beautiful as any I have seen in my old world. The furniture was made of a wood that is very similar to pink ivory wood of my old world. The main table was made by using many different wood using patterns. Same pattern followed to other rooms as well. There are many chambers that can accommodate many guests. All of them have indoor privy chambers with water brought from the tanks above. I took over the smallest tower for my personal use. It only has 7 floors including the top 2 floors. I have tried my best to make my chambers as comfortable as possible. I am sure even the king's room wouldn't be as luxurious as mine. The feast is not only to show of my new castle. I hope it will also showcase many more, from food to music to glasswork to steel weapons. I am sure more than few marriages will have the feast to thank for. I myself am hoping to set up Rowena and Enrique Mallister. It took us months to plan, but at the end it was all worth it. Rowena and Enrique will marry little later in a year or so. I negotiated land and a lordship for them with Lord Tully. Many trade agreements were made which will benefit us and the North as a whole. Only lord who is not happy is that filthy creature Frey. He tried many times for marriages for my brothers and sisters with his children and grandchildren. I politely refused and he was pissed. Now he is even more pissed because of the alliance with Lord Malister. As soon as Enrique and Rowena started building their keep, he started to charge outrageous amount of toll from traders coming and going from London. After discussing with Rowena, we decided to build our own bridge. As soon as the construction of the bridge started, the construction site and the village attracted attacks from bandits. I had to increase the number of guards sent to stop these attacks. I felt that the Cold War will turn into a warm one as soon as the bridge is completed and them starting to lose income, so we prepared for it. Everything was put on hold suddenly as white ravens started to fly. The citadel announced winter. The bridge and the keep were done just in time. Everyone stopped everything they were doing and started to prepare for winter. My target is to store food enough to feed the entire north for a year. We have another harvesting season until the winter. I spent time checking up on storage areas and repowering the ruins that keeps them in good order. All glass gardens, big or small, were checked and made sure there are no problems. The winter was there for over a year. I had nothing to compare to, but I was told that this is the most comfortable winter they had by many people. We had plenty to eat. Water tanks and the clay pipes had runes carved to heat the water and never frozen. Glass gardens continued to provide vegetable and fruit. Stored grains, curated meat and fish and pickled vegetable allowed us to eat like normal. Wards around the settlements provided warmth, shielding from the worst of winter. Our healers made sure people get treated properly, so very few died because of winter. There is nothing much to do during winter, so I spent the time planning and inventing things, or tried to. I have been here for half a decade and I am itching for some traveling. I came up with a ship design made for very long sea journeys. The ship is a 250 feet long with 5 masts and 3 propellers. If all goes well, it can travel at a speed of 50 km/h. I moved to Marshtown for a while the ship is being built. Thankfully the shipyard is covered and still can work during the winter. The ship was completed just in time for the spring and I named it Voyager. Unfortunately, my good friend Lord Reed passed away during the winter. Not even I could save him from old age. His heir Howland Reed was named the new lord. Howland is young but a very smart and loyal man. He trained with my Spartans and served in the wall as well. I am confident that he will be a great lord. I called all my clone brothers and sisters to London and informed them of my intention to travel. I personally visited Winterfell and informed the Lord Stark. Grant, who is the mayor of London, was made the temporary Lord Gryffindor, but the military decisions were left for Chris. I selected a crew of 100 for my journey and stored food for 18 months. Then I sailed to the unknown waters of the Sunset Sea where no one ever came back from. If only I knew what would happen in my absence. I will regret the timing of my trip forever. And thank you everyone for the reviews and PM. Sorry for not being able to answer all individually. Looking for a beta reader? If you are interested, please PM me. Rickard will still go ahead with marriage alliances with South. He is ambitious and the plans were made before Harry appeared. He can't go back on his words now even if he want to. I realized I have made few mistakes. I should not have made Harry this powerful. Events of the canon should still happen. At least the main things. So I had to remove Harry from Westeros. I should not have used the actors as templates for clones' appearance. I cringe myself when I read it now. Well, what to do? It's done. If I ever decide to rewrite the whole thing, I will change it. But for the moment please ignore my temporary insanity. Grant Harold Ned An. Do not own Got. If I did, neither the John nor Rob will die. Do not own HP. If I did, Harry will not end up with that redhead fangirl. No Oedipus complex. Harold Gryffindor. I was really happy to leave on my adventure to find what is there in Sunset Sea. The new ship Voyager is filled with many provisions for the trip. The ship is exploded magically for storage and living space. The crew is little over 100, includes many groups. There are archers, rangers, foot soldiers, scholars and many more. Most importantly, I have my new wife with me. He is one of the 4 new clones. The plan is to return with me de-aged as my own son. My wife will be dead due to some reason, and the clone acts as my wife will become the new Lord Gryffindor. We had no idea what's there and no way of knowing. Regardless of my magical powers, my senses cannot be used to search for hundreds of kilometers. Because of that, I bought 2 wargs that can skin change to birds. Every day they fly above and look for any land. About a month later we found small group of islands. Well, actually it's one big island and many small islands and islets. We first sailed around the island to find a natural harbor. Once found, we anchored the ship and stepped into the island. From what I could sense, there is no human life. Same cannot be said about the wildlife. Apart from some bays and outward points, the island seems to be of a perfect circular shape. If my calculation based on the time it took to sail around is correct, it has area around 1800 sq.km. Our wargs scouted and found a perfect spot to camp. As much as I was excited to find this tropical gem, it was nothing on how I felt when I found coconut. This is the first time I saw coconut in this world. It was a lot different than the coconut trees from my old world. For one, they are short. The tallest was about 15 feet tall. But they had enough fruit in them, indicating they are fully matured. And they have survived the winter, which is impossible the trees from the old world. I assume they have adapted and evolved. Few kilometers inland we found few king coconut trees as well. I have lived in Southeast Asia for many years and grew to like the curries they made with coconut. Now I can have them again. There are other uses of the tree like oil, ropes and many other things. Coconut is not the only thing I discovered. I found many tropical plants I recognized from old world. They are not exactly the same but close enough. The island is very fertile. It is very much possible the island was formed by a volcanic eruption. For the moment I found no evidence. The highest point of the island is a mountain range in the north from where many rivers flow. We spent few months exploring the island, which is now named Griffin Island. Upon close inspection we found several human skeletons or parts of them. And then we found shipwrecks as well. No one actually is capable of traveling to this island safely from the known world. The speed of the ships and their dependability on rowing or wind doesn't allow them to sail unknown waters for long. They need constant resupply from ports and they always sail close to the shore. A ship cannot really store enough food and water for such a long trip. Very few ships traveled to Volantis before I started trading, and Westerosi ships as far as Karth or Jadegate is unheard of. Because of this, the island can become a safe haven. I have been trying to increase the number of armed men, but I was unable to give an excuse if someone asks. I didn't want to get the attention of the Mad King with Lannister whispering in his ear. So I have little over 1,000 unsullied in the process of becoming Spartans hidden away in an island near Old Valyria. But it is a bit risky as anyone can find out anytime. With this island, not only I can hide them safely but also I have a place to give some of my mad scientist brothers to conduct their experiments. I will have to have more than soldiers to sustain the island. Farmers and many other men will need to be relocated. Well, we are in no hurry. I will have to discuss with others about this. Once we have mapped the island properly and explored it, we left it looking for more. Before leaving I set a beacon so that folks back in London know where we have been. This place will appear in the map. Griffin Island is located southeast of London, approximately parallel to Riverlands. Our next leg of the trip took us further southeast of Griffin Island. About another month's voyage took us to another land. This, unlike before, is not an island from what our wargs told us. It is a continent. It took us a month to sail around. The continent is as big as the north. Unlike the Griffin Island, it had humans. There were some settlements near the coastlines and I am sure the humongous ship gave them a fright. Once we complete our round and had a crude map of the continent, I sneaked into one of the settlement and downloaded the knowledge of who seemed to be their leader. From what I could find, these men are much similar to the native Indians when the Europeans arrived in Americas. The similarities stopped at their level of development. These men and women look nothing like Red Indians. For one, they are dark-skinned like the Summer Islanders, although you can easily recognize if you put them together. Summer Islanders are darker compared to these men. They do not iron, bronze or steel. Their tools are made of wood and stone. They know how to farm and have domesticated animals. Their main crops are corn, pumpkin and beans, which is grown all together. In addition, their plate is supplemented by potatoes, fruit, meat, fish and mushrooms. It took us a long time to win their trust. These people are jealously guard their environment. I asked the chief's blessing to explore further inland. He reluctantly agreed after I requested his men to teach us the ways of the trees and rivers. Our explorations were joined by some of his men to make sure we do not anger the thousands of gods resides in the trees and rivers. We set camp on a bank of a river one day after traveling upwards a river for many days. We are on our way to meet another clan who lives near a lake according to our guide. So what do you think of these lands? My wife, Helena, asked while having our dinner consist of smoked fish and some fruit the guide showed us. I think they should be left alone as much as possible. I don't want to do what Europeans did to America. I am not saying just leave and forget. These lands have too many resources to ignore. But we have to be careful, I told her. What if we provide them with tools to farm better? That will increase their food production. Then the Griffin Island can trade with them for food, she told me. That's not a bad idea. I am sure we will plenty of things to trade. Next day we had a biggest surprise we had on this trip. Our guide asked if we are okay to do a little detour to show us Shining Cave he found on one of his hunting trips. We agreed and followed him. What we found left us utterly speechless. Is that gold? Helena asked as soon as she found her voice. Fuck me. And I found my voice too. The cave was full of gold ore. It took us many more months to explore the continent. Thanks to our wargs, we have very good maps of the continent now. Many names were suggested for the continent, but my preference was Occasus, meaning sunset in Latin. From what we could see, the lands had a population of somewhere around 200,000 divided by hundreds of clans. We met quite a few clans. The gold deposit belonged to the first clan we made contact with. We managed to negotiate an agreement with them for the mining rights and future crop trade. It has been over a year since we left London when things changed dramatically. One evening one of my men came to see me. My lord, there is a ship sailing towards us, he said. A ship? Yes, my lord. A ship with our sigil and with the same speed as Voyager. Oh, this can't be good. Grand Gryffindor Harry thinks being the Lord Gryffindor is difficult. Try being the mayor of London. Especially on winter. Despite my protests, he appointed me the temporary lord. I can understand why he did so. Since I am the older of his two younger brothers, I am his heir by law. Understanding him is one thing, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Thankfully, I have my kin to help me out. Couple of months later, there was an invitation for a tourney from Lord Went. My eyes almost popped out when I saw the prize money for the events. I was not aware that they are quite that wealthy. I didn't care much really about it since it's not like I am harding for coin. Besides, North didn't really care much about these southern tomfooleries. Surprising everyone, Lord Rickard decided to attend the event. That and the large sum of money offered as prizes made many northerners wanting to attend. What was more surprising was the king's decision to attend. I sent a token amount of men with Lord Rickard to represent London under the command of Liam and told them to keep their head down. We do not want the king's attention on us. Unfortunately, everything didn't go as smooth as I hoped for. The crown prince insulted the North, Stroemlands and the Dornay with his actions. The idiot, after winning the tournament, names Lyanna Stark as the Queen of Love and Beauty. He did this while his wife is in attendance to a lady who is already betrothed to another. It was a miracle nothing more happened, as I am well aware of Brandon's temper and Lord Robert is not the most patient man I have heard. We all thought the scandalous incident will remain what it is and things will go back to normal. Unfortunately, it was just the beginning. Few months later, I have heard the Crown Prince's kidnapping of Lyanna. The war is inevitable. I called my kin for a conference who lived in London, Marshtown or Plymouth. So what do we gonna do? I asked once all gathered in the map room in Moat Cailin Castle. First we need to decide if we need to send for Harry, Lucas said. Can we do that? I mean, how are we going to find him? Rowena asked. If I am not mistaken, the shipyard in Plymouth is in the process of making another Voyager-class ship, right? Lily asked Taylor, who is the commander of Eastern Fleet. Yes, it is scheduled to launch in a month, but I can get more resources allocated and finish it in a week, he replied. Do it, Taylor. Harry will kill us all if we didn't send him a message. I don't think finding him will be very difficult. We know the general location thanks to the beacon. Let's hope he hasn't moved from his second location. Chris, how is our military strength? We can call the 1,500 reserves from Origo. It will take about a month to get them here. We have about 2,000 here, including city guards. We can easily add another 1,500-2,000 from civilians if needed, he answered. The whole point of having a permanent army is not to have the civilian go to war. Recruit 1,500 civilians and start training them. Get them ready to take over city guards. We will not call the civilians to the war unless we really need them. Call the reserves and have them camp at Plymouth. What about our fleet, Taylor, Kellen? We have 7 battleships including my flagship. We can refit some of the trade ships if needed, Kellen told us. Have 5 smaller trade ships refit. If the battle fleet had to move, there is no one between us and the Ironborn. How about East Coast, Taylor? I have 15 battleships including the flagship. We can also get trade ships refit for battle. Have 15 trade ships refit and send 5 to Kellen. Do not send any trade ship beyond Volantis for the moment. We might need them. Taylor nodded. The discussions went on and on about other preparations like supply chains, healers, medicine, weapon and armor and so on. Things unfortunately went from bad to worse as the news of Brandon's and Rickard's execution came. I sent a message to Ned, who was in Vale, to stay put as I am sending couple of ships and 500 men to escort him to North. It was a good foresight as the Gulltown rebelled and stayed loyal to the crown. The city was attacked from 2 sides with our troops and Lord Aaron's men. The battle was quick and resulted in rebels' victory. The war is officially on. Eddard, Ned Stark, I remember the first time I saw the repaired Moat Cailin Castle in the new city London. That was about a year before the last winter. My father insisted I attend the feast. Upon seeing the repaired castle, I realized why my father had the new lord in high regards and why my brother was gushing about his new friend. Lord Grant, who is the brother of Lord Gryffindor, told me that his brother is away and a messenger was already sent for his return. His cousin, Chris, then explained the preparation they have already made. Despite everything, I can't say I am not impressed. You have a secret army hidden somewhere? I asked when he told me about the reserve. Yes. Your father predicted a conflict. He and my lord cousin made preparations. Neck and the Moat Cailin is the choke point for North. No army can march further north without taking the castle. We couldn't raise an army openly. Your father told us to do it in secret and hide them. We were planning to bring them and hide them with mountain clans and Cranogman. Nobody really care about those 2 groups, he explained. Very well. I need to leave for Winterfell. I will arrange it, my lord. It took couple of months, but slowly the northern army was gathered at Moat Cailin. Lord Gryffindor was there just in time. My lord, I am very glad I could be here before you went south to war, he said. I am glad you could make it, Lord Gryffindor. My brother bragged about your skills in any weapon you touch. I am glad to have you with us, I told him. Your father gave me something, Lord Stark, he said, giving me an envelope. What is it? I asked, looking at the sealed envelope. I do not know. He told me to give you this in case he didn't continue. I will leave you alone, Lord Stark, he said with a bow and left. With a shaky hand I opened the envelope to find a letter written. Harold Gryffindor, do you think it will have any effect? Grant and I were walking back from Lord Stark's room. The lords gathered were given rooms at the castle. I hope so. The letter is a very good forgery. I made sure to include things only those 2 would know. So there is no reason for him to be suspicious, I answered him. Lord Stark spent majority of his life in Vale. He doesn't really know much about the North. Its people, their hopes and fears. Vale is where the Andals made their mark. It's the origin of the Seven. I do not want him to bring those ideals to the North. I will not let him spread that bastardized version of Christianity. It is as corrupt as what was in my old world around the Middle Ages. If we have to choose a religion, I will happily worship trees than a religion like the Seven. So I made a clever forgery. A letter from Lord Rickard to Ned. I hope that will help to diminish whatever he feels for the Seven. Couple of days later we had all the Lords of North present and Lord Stark called for a meeting. I offered a room large enough to accommodate all. From what I could see and feel, the letter definitely made an impact on Ned. When the iron is hot enough, you should use the hammer. Lord Stark, my lords, if I may. Ned nodded and I continued. My lords, why are we engaging on this war, one asks you? It is true our liege lord and his heir were brutally murdered. Are we doing this to avenge them? Of course we are. What else? Shouted Morse Umber. If it is the case, there is no need to march south. Order me Lord Stark. I will kill the Mad King and the Crown Prince when I find him. I will find Lyanna as well, I replied. If you are worried about the fact that Mad King call for your head. Lord Stark, I assure you no army will pass Moat Cailin. This I swear on my life and lives of all my kin. No enemy fleet will win any battle in Narrow Sea or Sunset Sea. This as well I swear. Let's forget about the reasons and say we went south. Let's say we kill thousands of men. Thousands of our men die in battle. We kill the Mad King and his son. We rescue Lyanna. Then what? Who is going to sit on the Iron Throne? The Queen. My lords, I am not saying we shouldn't go to war. But do not delude yourselves that we do this in memory of Lords Rickard and Brandon. We are doing this to eradicate one dynasty and replace it with another. So I ask you, what is in for us? No one spoke a word. What has the Iron Throne ever done for the North since King Stark bent the knee? The North has been insulted and neglected at best. I say we demand few things for our support. Ned was anything but happy, but to my delight the other lords nodded in agreement. What would you have us demand, Lord Gryffindor? Ned asked, breaking the silence. The biggest thing I want to demand is help in maintaining the wall. Starks have managed the wall without any help for 8,000 years. Ned protested. Yes, well, have you seen the sorry state it is in? I asked, a little irritated. I have been sending my men on temporary 6-month missions to the wall to help the Night's Watch. I have been sending food, weapons and other resources. Do you know how many castles along the wall are still standing? I am sorry, my lord, if things continue the way it is, there will be no Night's Watch or a wall for that matter to manage. The wall protects all southern kingdoms, not just us. Why should we be the only one to finance it? He speaks the truth, Lord Stark, Morse Umber added. He has been helping the Night's Watch and it definitely helped with the attacks. But it's still not enough. The wall is 300 miles long. Only 3 castles left standing, he elaborated. Very well. I am sure Robert will agree to this. Anything else? Ned asked, looking at me. I would say ask for a seat in his small council, but I assume you will be given a seat anyway, Lord Stark. I have no plans to stay in capital, but I will have him give a seat to a northern lord, Ned told us. Last thing I would want to ask is royal permission to form an order of knights. Many of our brave men don't have the chance to become a knight just because they do not follow the 7. If we establish our own order, our young men can become knights and earn the respect. I don't see anything wrong with that. I ask you, my lords. Let me speak to Robert about this myself. It will sound better if they come from me and as a request. Ned said, and we agreed. N. Still looking for a beta. Please, I am, if you like to help. Thanks all for the reviews and PM. Robert's Rebellion AN. Both got an HP is not mine. Harold Gryffindor. Northern Army marched towards River Run. Hoster Tully is one of the most opportunistic man I have ever seen. Not only he demanded Ned marry his daughter who was promised to Brandon, he wanted old man Aaron to marry his second daughter. Lord Aaron is old enough to be Lisa's grandfather. He will have his descendants as overlords of 3 kingdoms in the future. Neither of those two girls made any good impressions on me. Especially Lisa. I felt sorry for old man John. She is going to be a headache. News came about Robert's win at the Battle of Summerhall and then the defeat at the Battle of Ashford. Valemen was not yet there. Aaron is having little trouble getting all his bannermen gathered. Unfortunately, we had no time to wait as Robert is being persuaded by royalist forces. And our spies notified about the royal army marching to meet Robert. We had no other choice but to try to reinforce Robert. Robert had devised a clever plan to misdirect royal army. He had sent majority of his force away from him and he hid in Stony Sept. Unfortunately, John Conington, the commander of the royal army, found about this. When we arrived at the town, royal army had already taken the town and searching homes to find Robert. We didn't have much time to plan, so we just flooded the walls and starting to fight royal army. Battles in an urban setting are a lot different than an open field. Usual battle tactics are useless here. There are no formations and battle lines. Men were fighting all over the streets, walls and roofs. My Spartans, bless them all, were magnificent. They quickly formed units of 8 to 10 men and fought covering each other's backs. I stopped thinking about anything else other than the enemies in front of me and carved a path of destruction. Like most of my brothers and sisters, I used my battle staff. About 20 meters away I saw Lord Tully fighting John Conington, and from what I could see Conington is winning. I tried my best to get there, but there were many between him and me. Just as Conington was swaying his sword for the final blow to end wounded Lord Tully, Sir Dennis blocked it, giving Tully men to drag their lord away. Unfortunately, Sir Dennis was no match for the new hand of the king. I had no choice but to use a little magic. I jumped into the air bypassing soldiers and landed near Conington. My magical jump was enough distraction for badly wounded Sir Dennis to get away. So the new Griffin himself. There will be only one Griffin left. Conington challenged me. Unlike you, pretender, this Griffin can actually fly. I answered back and attacked. He was a very good swordsman. But unfortunate for him, I was taught by the Shaolin monks and trained with them for a couple of years. Soon he realized he has no chance in defeating me and tried to flee. I was not going to let him do that. As soon as the opportunity presented, I gave him a fatal blow to his head. The rune-enforced battle staff is stronger than any metal and dented his helm, killing him instantly. With the death of their commander, royal army retreated. Somewhere in the middle of the battle, Robert had joined the battle, and that caused our win as much as Conington's death. Once the battle was over, the armies decided to retreat back to Riverrun as the town is not a well-defensive position. I have met Robert before at the 5th anniversary feast of London. Then he was a young lord and our interaction was very limited. Now he is the Lord Paramount of Stormlands and possible future king. After the battle, all lords and important knights gathered for a victory feast. Robert spent the whole time getting drunk and flirting with anyone with tits. I wondered and worried about the person we are trying to place on the Iron Throne. Lord Harold, so you killed Conington, I've heard. Robert commented right after the battle. I have, Lord Robert. I answered. You should call him your grace. He is your king. Some guy the first didn't know interrupted. I will call him my king when he sits on the Iron Throne. As justified as it might be, we all are rebels fighting against the rightful king. My men and I will do all in our power to make Lord Robert the king of 7 kingdoms and then call him our king. Not a moment sooner, I replied, the arrogant knight. That declaration was heard by many lords. Robert was impressed for some reason with that, unlike many lords. Several days later it was the double wedding of Tully's sisters. With the recent victory it became a victory feast. The festivities lasted for a week. While other lords and knights spent their time celebrating, I used that time to consolidate my forces and plan for the battles to come. With me I have about 2,000 Spartans. I was told that civilians were recruited and put to city guard jobs. 100 men served at the wall were called back and they are assisting with the city guards. The reserves from Origo have landed at Plymouth. That is another 1,500 men. Western Fleet has 10 trade ships refit for battle as well as the 7 battleships. 2 smaller battleships and 3 refit trade ships were used to patrol the Sunset Sea. All other ships are now harbored at Seaguard, fully armed and manned. Eastern Fleet has 15 trade ships, refit and used in patrol while the battle fleet is ready for battle. I have a plan. A plan to elevate us and own some great real estate. Once all the drinking and whoring is done, all major lords and commanders gathered for a war council. The table in the room had a large map of Westeros and statues representing armies. One statue indicates 5,000 men. The rebel army's number was impressive. We had 15,000 northern men, 10,000 Stormlanders, 20,000 Velemen and 15,000 Rivermen. Although the combined number isn't to be laughed about, the Tyrell army alone outnumber rebels 3 to 4, combined with Crown Land. Dorne and Royalist Rivermen and Stormlanders, we are not in a favorable situation. Half of Reach army is camped outside of Storm's End Castle. The Redwyne fleet is blocking the Shipbreaker Bay, effectively cutting off the castle from any trade. They plan to starve the inhabitants. Everyone is talking and offering ideas and plans for someone to show an error and shot them down. My lords, if I may have your attention, I tried to offer my plan. It seems like Tyrell army is the real problem together with their navy. What if I take care of them on my own with just my men? No one spoke. Redwyne Tyrell fleet I can easily defeat. That is not a problem. I can't possibly defeat 40,000 Tyrell army besieging Storm's End there itself. But I can make them pull back to Reach and wreak havoc on them. Rest of the royal army you can easily match against. How? Ned found his voice somehow. How would you do that? With lot of courage, wit, cunning and faith, my lord. I don't believe you. Robert shouted, and that's what I was waiting for. Oh, you don't? Will you be brave enough to bet on it, my lord? I challenged. Yes. I will bet on it. He can't back down now in front of all the lords. Very well. If I manage to destroy Redwyne Tyrell fleet completely and drag the Tyrell army at Storm's End towards Reach and defeat them, I want Redwyne gone from the Abor and the island given to me completely. I want to be named Lord Paramount of Abor and Summer Sea. You have some balls, Robert commented after a long silence. I offer to defeat 40,000 men with my 2,500. I offer to defeat a fleet of 100 royalist ships with my 15. Tell me if I don't deserve them if I succeed. You have nothing to lose from this deal. Let me sweeten the deal. If I couldn't do what I offer, I will give you 5 million galleons and 5 of my trade ships everyone wanted. I admit Lord Harold, as unbelievable as it might be, I do not really have anything to lose. But giving you Abor completal and destroying a noble house is not a simple thing, Robert said. I understand. But my lord, think of the long-term consequences. Do you want a region that can provide an army that can rebel and win against you on its own when you become the king? By dividing the Reach, you divide the power of Tyrells. Make no mistakes, my lord. Tyrells will always be Targaryen loyalist regardless who sits on Iron Throne. This way you will have the second largest fleet of Westeros loyal to you. I can keep Hightowers and Reach in control. Fine. I will agree if you offer that 5 million dragons regardless you win or not, Robert counter-offered. If you want gold on top of what I offered Lord Robert the First want stepstones, I will throw a Valyrian steel sword on top of gold. Fine, damn you. Take that useless rocks, I don't care. Thank you, my lord. I will leave 500 of my men here. The rest I am taking with me. All other lords had their mouth hanging and eyes wide. I didn't give much time to anyone to talk to me. I left 500 of my men with the command of Liam and left with the rest to regroup at Longbridge. My kin and I have been planning for this. We thought that this would be the best time to expand our reach to the south. The opportunity presented itself. It would be idiotic not to take advantage. With Abor and the Stepstones we will have naval bases in 4 corners of the Westeros. Grant had sent the word to our brother in Astapor to purchase 2,000 Unsullied right after Lyanna was kidnapped. They have gone through crash course at Origo and will be here in a week's time. With that my troops' number will be 5,000 excluding men serve at ships. Speaking of ships, few of our new type of ships and boats were built just for this campaign. They were already in the planning stage but the war forced us to get on with it. Almost all shipbuilders and other related professionals were moved to Marshtown from Plymouth for this major shipbuilding campaign. Biggest new ship is a 200 feet long multi-deck catamaran made just for troop transport or in peacetime passenger transport. This ship can transport up to 750 people comfortably. The ship was built to act as a mobile command center. Second big ship built was a carrier ship. It looks same as the new transport ship, but this one transport a new type of boat. The idea for this boat came from one of my brothers who's stationed at Volantis. After the fall of Royan Empire, many fertile lands were abandoned. My brother was especially interested about the golden fields west of the Dagger Lake. He wanted a fast small boat can operate on rivers. Like Royner. To protect the land from others who might not like the new settlements, so we developed a fast attack boat. The boat is a flat bottom 15 feet long that can carry 10 soldiers. It has a smaller version of the missile launchers we developed for ships. It shoots 3 feet long arrow that can devastate a smaller ship and equally disastrous to enemy troops it attacks. The specialty of this launcher is that it can easily detached and wheels can be attached to use in land combat. This might not be powerful enough to break stone castle walls, but anything wooden including castle gates are a fair game. Since these boats are made for rivers, they are carried in the sea by a Seahorse class carrier ship. This is not to say they can't operate in the sea, but they are not suited for long trips in rough sea. The new carrier ship can carry up to 40 boats. Right now we have 2 carrier ships, 80 Arrow class boats. Almost all of my kin in Westeros were gathered at Longbridge for our own war council. How exactly are you planning to make Reach's army pull back? Rowena asked me. By attacking their pride. It was Grant who answered. Few thousand men of ours is not enough to commit all of their 40,000 men in the Stormlands to come for rescue. But we can attack places most important to them. Once the Redwyne fleet is destroyed, Eastern Fleet will sail to Abor and attack whatever the ships remain in Abor and Aldtown. Then we'll burn Aldtown Harbor and damage the Hightower. Both Redwyne and Hightower forces will not remain where they are then. At the same time we will attack and burn Highgarden as well as Horn Hill. Tyrell's and Tarley men will have to come back. We will keep burning castles along the Mander. Then we will attack the returning forces using guerrilla tactics. We will use all the tools and dirty tricks possible. I supplemented. You said burn, Lily commented. Yes. We can't possibly capture and hold all those castles. We don't have enough men. So we will attack, loot and burn them down. We need to make sure to minimize the damage to small folks. We don't want to be hated once all this is over, I answered. We all knew this is risky and a gamble. Battle in the sea is not a problem. I am sure we can win all battles simply because of our superior ships. No ship can come closer to ours. But battle on land is not that easy. We can't outrun them and we have no real experience. Anyway, it's too late to fall back. We formed 3 battle fleets. First one will be responsible for breaking the blockade at Shipbreaker Bay. They will need to destroy each and every ship for the plan to work. Then they will try to weaken or if possible destroy the Royal Fleet at Dragonstone. Second Fleet will sail to Abor and destroy remaining Redwyne ships and then ships at Aldtown. Once done, they will destroy or damage the castles along the sea including Hightower using the 10 feet long destroyer missile launched from the flagship. Third Fleet will include the bulk of the Spartans and 2 carrier ships including all of the Arrow-class boats. They will first attack Shield Islands and then the Arrow boats will provide support to Spartans in attacking Highgarden. Once Highgarden is fallen, the troops and the boats will travel along the river to attack other castles. Davos Seaworth, a former smuggler who was with me since the beginning as the commander of the First Fleet. He was also instructed to bring 2 ships full of food for the starving men at Storm's End. Taylor is the commander of Second Fleet and Kellen is the commander for Third. Chris is the overall commander for the Spartans. I will just observe and provide support wherever needed. I was told that they will need my skills and power when breaching the castles, especially the Highgarden. All 3 fleets are to begin their attacks at the same time. As planned, we attacked the Shield Islands. There are 4 islands near the mouth of Mander River. As soon as our fleet was visible, they light the beacon on top of their watchtowers to inform the settlements in the mainland of coming attack. Usually this means Iron Islanders are attacking. Our Arrow-class boats proved their worth by quickly sinking all ships at Shield Islands. Then we proceeded to block the mouth of the river so that no extra support can come through the river. Spartans started to march towards Highgarden. There is no stronghold between our landing zone and the castle. They will need to cross the river at some point. 70 of Arrow boats took the other route through the Mander River, leaving 10 to patrol the area and block the mouth of the river. Both the fleet of boats and Spartans wreaked havoc on their way. Our boats attacked settlements along the river, not setting foot on the banks. They were too fast for anyone to catch. They have also destroyed the bridges over the river so that gathering forces at one place became almost impossible. Davos Seaworth, appointed as the commander of a battle fleet, a fleet of most advanced navy of the world, is not a small thing. Especially for a flea-bottom-born former smuggler like me. I thank the gods every day for making me meet Lord Harold. I met him in Bravos when he was just another man with lot of gold. He was looking for sailors to man his new type of ship. It was not a secret that Lord Harold is building a complete new type of ship with Iron Bank's sponsorship. News like that travels fast. I was one of the first few he selected. Over the years I have learned a lot from him and his kin. The task of my fleet was to break the blockage at Shipbreaker Bay by the Coben Tyrell Redwind fleet. They have about 100 ships and I have 15. We sailed through the Strait of Tarth towards Storm's End. They knew we are coming and were forming battle lines. Unfortunately for them, we did not intend for them to come closer. With superior maneuverability and speed we formed lines and started shooting missiles. The latest missiles have a range of 1,000 meters. Within minutes more than 10 ships were sunk. The wreckage was blocking the other ships to sail forward and they had to sail around them. Few minutes later our fleet repositioned for the second round of missiles. It took only 3 rounds for them to try to flee. Again, unfortunate for them, our ships are 10 times faster than them and need no wind or oar to sail. It took maybe 30 to 40 minutes for all the enemy ships to sink. Most of the armed men or the sailors swam to the shore. Any who was unfortunate enough was shot by arrows from the archers at the Storm's End castle. People at the castle welcomed me like a hero for bringing them food. Taylor Slytherin, I am not going to be loved after what I have to do. I am supposed to destroy one of the 9 wonders of the known world. The tallest building in the world. On top of that, I should destroy 4 more castles, Old Town Harbor and Abor's Ryamsport and Starfish Harbor. Our first target was Sunflower Hall. Using the massive launcher of the flagship Poseidon, we attacked with destroyer missiles. It took just 6 missiles. The next target was the remaining Redwind ships. They only had about 15 ships and took us just few minutes. From then systematically we destroyed everything we could from our ships. I was not happy to see the Hightower breakdown. Reminded me of the collapse of World Trade Center after the 9/11 attack. But that's what we had to do. Chris Gryffindor, while Harry is leading the Arrow boats through the river, we took the direct route to Highgarden inland. It was about 250 kilometers long march. It took us almost a week. Thankfully there was not a lot of resistance. The boats were already there. They brought a mobile version of destroyer missile launcher with them. One by one each and every tiered wall was breached. They surrendered without much resistance after our forces entered the castle. In addition to the many treasures, we also secured many important hostages including Tyrell family. Once Highgarden fell, we traveled through the Mander and using destroyer missiles, destroyed the castles along the river. Like all the castles we destroyed, we sent a messenger informing them of what's coming and warned them to flee if they don't want to be buried alive. We weren't planning to hold those castles except Bitterbridge. Our boats had been destroying the bridges, making sure that Bitterbridge is the only place to cross the river. Returning Tyrell army will have to pass there. That is where we will make our stand. As expected, few weeks later Tyrell army arrived and camped outside of Bitterbridge, close enough for our missiles to target. Few of my kin and I sneaked into their camp at night and made preparations. We untied the horses first and then pour inflammable substances over their supply carts and tents. Once that is done, we went back to the castle and sent the first round of missiles, waking the tired and sleepy army. Then our horsed archers came in and fired the flaming arrows, setting fire to the camp. That was the signal for the second and third round of missiles. Within few moments they lost their horses, supply carts set on fire, and thousands killed by missiles. Without proper leadership they began to run and our 500 horsed archers followed, killing as many as possible. While all this is happening, my kin and I were on an important mission to capture as much as nobles as hostage. Once we have them in custody, there will be no one to lead them effectively, rendering the army useless. We managed to capture Randall Tarley and Mace Tyrell. Our work here is done. We fulfilled the promise. Harold Gryffindor. At the same time, the rest of the Royalist army had marched north to face the rebels camping north of Trident. I learned that it was a victory for rebels, with Robert killing the Crown Prince. Lannisters, who had been silent since the beginning, now marching towards King's Landing. I wasn't worried. They will not be stupid enough to support Targaryens after all victories by rebels. Tywin Lannister is anything but stupid. I cannot, however, move my men anywhere. Although Reach's army scattered and their leaders captured, I should always be prepared for some ambitious idiot to gather the men and try to attack. However, I rode as fast as I can to King's Landing alone. You can never trust Tywin Lannister. I arrived just in time to see they trick the king to enter the city. As soon as they did, they started attacking the city guard and sacking the city. With invisibility cloak activated, I went near to Tywin to have a peek at his mind. I was disgusted to see his intention to kill Princess Elia and innocent children. I raced towards the Red Keep to find them before Lannisters. I changed myself to look like a Dornish men and sneaked past all guards, stunning some of them. "Princess Elia, we have to leave," I said, barging into the room. "Who are you?" she asked with a knife pointing at me. "Lannisters betrayed the king. They are sacking the city and soon will be here. Please, we have to hurry." I urged and used a strong compulsion charm on her. She agreed after that. I stunned her first and drew blood from her and her 2 children. Then I created 3 golems look like them. If they just vanished, I will have more than little trouble to get them out of here. So I made a plan to place decoys. On my way here I collected 3 dead men and transfigured them to small pebbles. I changed them back to dead bodies and bind them with blood drawn from each of 3 royals. This will make the dead bodies look like the 3 owners. And then I animate them using the power of Resurrection Stone and added very strong compulsion charms to act as real princesses and the prince. Leaving the golems there, I enervate the princess and took them away. Fortunately, one of the minds I scanned while I was in King's Landing was Varys. He knew more than anyone of the secret passages. Using them, I sneaked them to an empty house near the harbor. I placed as much as diversion ward I can. I know Davos is on his way to King's Landing with his fleet. I only have to wait till then. I sighed in relief when I saw the Griffin flags sailing towards the harbor. I trust Davos. He is one of the few I really trust who is not my blood. I had no problem in trusting him with getting the royal family away from here. I told him to take them away and leave for Marshtown and guard them with his life. I entered the throne room later to see the Lannisters present the dead bodies of Princess Elia and her children to Robert wrapped in Lannister cloaks. I was furious to see the gleam in Robert's eyes. "Monsters!" I shouted. "You son of a bitch! You ordered to kill innocent children?" Few northern lords had to hold me physically from attacking Tywin Lannister. "So what? They're dragon spawn. We should thank Lord Tywin," Robert replied. I was not the only one to realize how mad Robert looked and sounded. "How could you?" Ned was the first to raise his voice. "You are mad." I didn't let Ned finish. "You are as mad as the previous king." What followed was a shouting match between Robert, me and Ned. Jon Arryn tried to mediate, but he was not very successful. It ended with Robert denying me a boar and bloodstone and threatened to have me killed. I told him he is welcome to try. Right after the fight, northern armies started to march home. and all of my ships withdrew from King's Landing. Ned somehow got information that Lyanna is held in Tower of Joy in Dornay. Few of Northern lords including me traveled secretly to check that. I sent a falcon to Taylor to move his fleet near Starfall. Meanwhile we retreated from Reach slowly. To say I was furious with Robert would be the understatement of the century. I was not the only one. I have promised almost all the lords to take in some of their space sons, grandsons or nephews with me when I get a boar and stepstones. Many of these are the high-born young men who do not stand to inherit anything. Robert destroyed their chances of making something of themselves. Ned was smart enough not to give any excuses on behalf of Robert. Robert might have thought he won this round, but what he did was lighting the spark of Northern independence. It has always been my intention. Thank you, Robert. You might have won the battle, but you lost the war even before it began. Thank you everyone for the reviews and PM. Hold the door, really? The author must have worked as an elevator operator at some point. Spark of Independence AN. Jon Snow doesn't know anything and I don't own anything. I looked for you on the Trident, Ned said to them. We were not there, Esser Gerald answered. Woe to the usurper if we had been, said Esser Oswell. When King's Landing fell, Esser Jaime slew your king with a golden sword, and I wondered where you were. Far away, Esser Gerald said, or Aerys would yet sit the Iron Throne, and our false brother would burn in 7 hells. I came down on Storm's End to lift the siege, Ned told them, and the lords Tyrell and Redwyn dipped their banners, and all their knights bent the knee to pledge us fealty. I was certain you would be among them. Our knees do not bend easily, said Esser Arthur Dane. Esser Willem Darry has fled to Dragonstone, with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Esser Willem is a good man and true, said Esser Oswell. But not of the Kingsguard, Esser Gerald pointed out. The Kingsguard does not flee. Then or now, said Esser Arthur. He donned his helm. We swore a vow, explained old Esser Gerald. Ned's wraiths moved up beside him, with shadow swords in hand. They were 7 against 3. And now it begins, said Esser Arthur Dane, the sword of the morning. He unsheathed Dawn and held it with both hands. The blade was pale as milk glass, alive with light. No, Ned said with sadness in his voice, now it ends. So it did. When we arrived at the Tower of Joy, 3 of the King's Guard including the Lord Commander were there. Ned pled them to step aside but it was unheard by them. We have traveled on horses for many days and it was damn freaking hot and humid. I had no patience left. Within minutes I had Oswell went on his knees and Theo Wool cut his head off. Remaining 2 King's Guard had 4 each against them. As skilled as they were, quantity won against quality. They were dead soon enough. Unfortunately they managed to kill Ethan Glover and Martin Castle. We rushed into the tower to see Lyanna on a bed of blood with a newborn held by a woman. We realized what happened and the shock lasted only a few moments for my saving people thing to kick in. Everyone out. Ned, you can stay, but everyone out. I shouted. I knew there is no way Ned would go away. Everyone knew that I am a good healer and obeyed my order. Without questions. Only Ned, Lyanna and I were left in the room. I closed the room and sealed with a silencing charm. Ned, you have to swear an oath never to tell anyone what you about to see. Only then I can try to help her. I wouldn't ask if it isn't important. Both your father and brother swore the oath. Lyanna doesn't have a lot of time. He was angry but swore the oath. Without saying anything I cast a diagnostic charm to assess the situation. From what I could learn, she had a difficult childbirth and there was a lot of bleeding. I did what I could do, but she will need to be seen by an experienced healer. Thankfully I always travel with emergency medicine kit. I poured the needed potions and put her on status until Lucas can see her. Healing is not exactly my expertise and doing these charms wandless wasn't that easy. But I was sure that she will be okay until Lucas can see her. And I was sure she will make a full recovery. Ned has been very patient so far. So I began to weave a story. I told him that my family was taught these magical arts when we were Marsh Kings by the children of the forest. It took a while to make an elaborate story, but he believed at the end. If Robert find out about the child, he will kill him, Ned. I warned Ned at the end of explanation. I know. What can we do? There are 5 people out there who know the truth. I trust my bannermen, but secrets have a way of not staying secrets for long. Ned said, unconsciously pulling his hair. Healing arts are not the only thing we were taught. I can make sure they cannot spill the secret, I told him after a little while. I was not sure if I should expose more of my magic, but I saw no other way. What can you do? He asked. Blood oath. We can ask them to give an oath on our blood. I will add a little bit of magic, making it a magical oath. They will not be physically able to speak of it to anyone. It took a lot of explaining, but he agreed. Ned called everyone back and I asked them to give a blood oath. No one hesitated. We burned Ethan Grover and Martin Cecil and gathered their bones to take back home. For the 3 Kings Guard, we threw them into the tower and collapsed it on them. They did not deserve anything better. With the loose ends tied as best as we could, we smuggled Lyanna, her son and the wet nurse to one of the ships we had in the Sea of Dornay. From there they were taken to our mobile command center anchored near the Shield Islands where Lucas was waiting. Ned, Howland and Theo went to King's Landing to inform Robert about the death of Lyanna. I convinced Ned that nothing good comes out if we hand over Lyanna to Robert. I was aware how much Lyanna disliked Robert. After what she had gone through, it will be too cruel to make her marry him. What are we going to do with Lyanna and my nephew? Ned asked me. We need to hide her. I am more than sure Lannister is plotting to make his daughter the queen. Lyanna is the biggest obstacle. If we are going to lie to the king that she is dead, she can't be seen anywhere in Westeros or Essos for that matter, I answered. So where then? Asked the frustrated Ned. I found some islands far away in the Sunset Sea. I already have sent men and women to set up a small colony. It will soon grow. I can hide both of them there. No ship except mine can travel that far, and I have no plan to reveal the colony to the whole world. She will be safe there. I hope at some point in the future she can come home, but until then, let my men protect her. I am very grateful. I am doing my duty, Ned. Your father was not just my liege lord. Brandon was not just another friend. I owe everything to their kindness. You are now my liege lord, the one I have sworn to. If it's in my power, I will do whatever it is to help you and your blood. Nevertheless, Harold. Thank you. Ned left the room before I could reply. Next morning he left for King's Landing and I took Lyanna and the child to our ship. I gave the command to release the refitted trade ships and resume trading as usual. The battle fleets were broken and Eastern Fleet went back to their usual duties. The Spartans in the Reach were slowly retreating to the Oakenshield Island, which was our temporary seat of power. They didn't come empty-handed. Every little piece of value was looted from the castles, but no small folk was touched unless they took arms. Soon after I dropped Lyanna and the group, I took a ship to Sunspear with Princess Elia and the kids in it hidden. I needed to talk to Prince Doran about them. Initially I thought of hiding them in Griffin Island, but now because of Lyanna I can't do that. Unlike previous times I visited Sunspear, I didn't receive the usual enthusiastic welcome. I was used to firm handshake of Doran and warm hugs of Oberyn. Why are you here, Lord Gryffindor? Prince Doran asked when I was presented. The last time he spoke so formal to me was the day I cured him of his gout. Lord Gryffindor? I asked, a little hurt. You helped that monster who celebrated the raping and killing of my sister and her children. Oberyn, always the passionate one, shouted at me. Come on, Oberyn. Do you think of me so low? That I would condone so anything as barbaric as that? Of all people, Oberyn, you who know me better than most? Both Oberyn and Doran had no reply. I fought in this war to avenge my liege lord, my best friend and his sister. I fought with Robert because of that reason only. I called him a monster in front of all lords. I did so knowing that I will lose what I was promised. Both Doran and Oberyn was listening attentively. I was promised the Abor and the Stepstones if I defeated the Reach army and the Navy. And I did. I defeated both. Had I kept my mouth shut I would have gotten both. But I didn't. So Oberon, don't you dare put me in the same category as them. Oberon and Doran bowed their head in shame. And we need to talk, in private, I told them. I was directed to Doran's own solar. I made sure there was no one listening and dropped the bomb. Princess Elia and the children are not dead. Both Dornishmen were silent in shock and disbelief. What do you mean, Harold? Doran was the first to speak. I have been planning this for a while. I managed to sneak in and smuggle them out of the city. They killed the 3 disguised as them. I explained. I explained the fabricated story of my heroic rescue and later sneaked 2 princes into my ship for the most heartwarming reunion. Once all the tears were shed and hugs were worn out, the question raised as to what to do next. They can't stay in Dorne and I can't take them to North. Only thing I can suggest is that to send her to Volantis. I have connections inside the Black Walls. They can hide and protect them. I offered. We discussed long and hard about the options and decided that Volantis is the best option. We didn't wait anymore after that. We sailed to Volantis with Oberon. At Volantis we were welcomed by my distant cousin, Donipos Kasser, who is married to one of the Triax's granddaughter. This one was the one who looks like Channing Tatum. He however changed his name. I explained him the situation and we decided to introduce Princess Elia as the widow of Donipos' cousin. Since it had been a while I was in Volantis, I decided to stay a couple of days there. Once we were provided rooms, Oberon and I had a long and hard discussion in privacy of my room. It went on and on for the most of the night. By the time I went back to the Shield Islands, we had all men out of mainland, so we went back to our own homes. Lyanna was out of status and awake. After explaining the situation she agreed to our decisions. As a mother her first priority was the safety of her son. So I sent her to the Griffin Island. The ship sent her with will bring back my son and wife from Griffin Island. All the returning northern lords gathered at Moat Cailin for our own victory feast. It was just the excuse for the lords to have a meeting. It was explosive from the start. Ned had to bear the most of the burnt for being Robert's best friend. You have a decision to make, Lord Stark, I said, gaining attention of the others. You have to choose between your friend in the north. I feel terrible to say this, but you have to. We all got to see what kind of a person he is. A cruel madman, and his word mean nothing. I don't believe he is going to honor what he promised to the north about sharing the expenses of the wall or the Order of Knights. I will not do anything about breaking the promise made to me personally for the moment, but I do not intend to sit idle if he break the promise made to the north. Other lords nodded in agreement. I will give him a year to get things in order, but if he will not keep his promise after that, I will not pay any tax to Iron Throne and encourage all of you to do the same. It's time for us to stand up for ourselves. As long as there is no dragon, the north is safe. No hostile army will cross Moat Cailin and no ship will survive battle with ours. I think I have proved that to everyone. You want us to rebel, Lord Gryffindor? Ned asked. If we have to, yes. I do not advise to take our armies south, but we need to be ready. I hope for their sake that no southern kingdom takes up arms against the north, because next time I will burn the whole fucking thing to the ground. Griffin's fire burn warmer than a dragon's. Poor Ned just sighed. Like I declared, I intend to give the Iron Throne a year. But that does not mean I will wait to make preparations. Unfortunately, that means my cousin who want to rule the Golden Fields and the one want to conquer one of the Summer Islands have to wait a little more, as I will be quite busy. I have made a deal with Oberon to acquire some lands in Dorne. I might have lost the chance to own the Stepstones and the Abor, but I have alternative locations. The fingers of the arm of Dorne are few kilometers east of Stepstones. So instead of Stepstones, I will have my southeast naval base established there. The area I wanted was empty. It's not a desert, just dry. I was planning to create a river starting from the mountains in the east. The new river will flow to the narrow sea. The second base will be located at the southwestern point of the Dorne, which is south of Starfall. Those lands, however, are useless to grow anything. It is all sand. But it is a very good place to build a glass factory. We will have to build some extensive breakwater to create a harbor, but once done, it can be one of the biggest in the Westeros. The sea is deep and can anchor even the biggest ship we have. It will undermine the importance of Aldtown as a harbor town soon enough. It was 3 months after the conclusion of the war we made the deal official. We had a big public event and a feast to announce it too. All the lords of Dorne were in attendance, as well as all the noblemen of North I am employing in these 2 bases. Valyrian steel sword I promised Robert was presented to Prince Doran in the event. The news I am sure will travel to King's Landing. I have given them 1,000,000 dragons, but that was in private. 2 of my cousins who were training under Taylor and Kellen were chosen as the lords of the 2 bases. With the public declaration, our 2 new future cities started to form. As always, I apologize for my bad English. However, I do not apologize for the mention of gay relationships. Don't read. Dublin, Madrid, Lisbon, Cedric Gryffindor. I was created 3 years before the war. I have been working under Taylor with the Eastern Fleet at Plymouth since then. I was asked to hold the fort while everyone else went to war. I was pissed but accepted my orders. I thought this is my punishment for being the rebel of the family. Harry is overprotective of his family, and often forget that we are in fact copies of him, albeit less powerful. I was the one to push back hardest, I guess. I was very open of my affairs with men unlike others and didn't care much of what others think of me. So it was a surprise when Harry and Taylor appointed me as the Lord Commander of the Eastern Dorne Fleet and the Lord of the city of Madrid. Madrid was to be built in the fingers of the arm of Dorne. There are 4 fingers and there is a bay between the northernmost 2 fingers. It will be used as the harbor. The city will be located south of the bay. Madrid will be a midway hub between cities of Slaver Bay, Karth and beyond, with the ports of Westeros and free cities. In short, it's going to be big. That means it needs careful and proper planning. I was given 2 battleships, 3 trade ships, 10 aeroboats, 300 Spartans and 700 men and women. Oh, and a shitload of gold too. Among them, there were 10 of my kin who can employ magic. Thank Merlin for the small favors. Can you believe how difficult it would be otherwise? While our men are building temporary housing, the magical folks started to build temporary wards. We are in the open of foreign lands. It's better to be careful even with a sizable force. I assumed it will take 5 to 6 years for the city to form properly. I was told that I will have to give up my post as the commander of the fleet in a couple of years. Frederick Glover, the younger son of Lord Glover of Deepwood Motte, is being groomed for the job. He is already a good sailor and has enough magic to use our special fetchers in ships. He is one of the first few men who will know the secrets of House Gryffindor. They all have signed contracts and won't be able to reveal them to anyone or betray us. Dorne is the complete opposite of the north. It's dry and warm. We wanted to change the landscape a bit for more comfort. Our first task was to create rivers or streams where we can. The thing about creating them is that you can't really control where they would flow. You can guide them to a certain extent, but at the end, it will do what it wants. We experimented with several locations by generating a source of water, by creating a water sprout. After few weeks of observation and experimenting, we managed to create 4 streams that flow where we wanted. All of them join about 2 kilometers from the bay, creating a large lake. The new lake has a small island middle of it. From the lake, one river flows east and meets the sea. The new city will be built on the banks of the river.